Hi. Hi, Martin. Can you see me?
Yeah, fine. Hi, Wayne. And I can hear you loud and clear.
I love your voice. And sorry that I look so dark because I've got to turn on the lights. but before, we start with this evening night session for Podcast Asia, right? Just want to, shout out and give thanks to you for agreeing to do this. And so sorry that I came in late, about 5 minutes later than usual. It's supposed to start 8 o'clock Singapore time on the dot. So really sorry to keep you waiting.
Yeah, no problem at all. I always appreciate that when anyone does anything technical over the internet, there are always hiccups. So, yeah, it's great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And, immediately hearing your voice coming through my headphones, right? I'm already mesmerized by the tone of your voice, the calmness as well. Tell us about your coming podcast, because I'm intrigued and I think that the whole show features your brilliant voice and the way that you carry your messages across to soothe your audience and your listeners, right? Tell us more.
Well, I fell into podcasting purely by chance. I'm a paramedic by trade and a hypnotherapist. And just over a year ago, I chanced upon Pat Flynn and his podcast, Smart Passive Income. And on it, it said, always try and give something for free to your client base. So I started initially a YouTube channel, very quickly took that over to podcasting, and then realized I might have something special, as without any advertising, but just paying attention to what the audience wanted. The show has grown from absolute scratch with no background to 1.6 million downloads in the last 14 to 15 months, and now generates me almost a livable income. And I'm just really thankful for the ability to share my message around the world. It's been a real eye-opener and a roller coaster ride, and also shows anyone can do it. It doesn't matter where you live on the planet, you can be a success. Just pay attention to what you're giving your audience. Yeah.
This is amazing. And, I'll definitely want to ask you how you're using this podcasting medium, right? As well as face-to-face webcam session, which I believe you do quite a lot for your clients as well. And you also have an online course that actually help set listeners free from negative habits and emotions, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more on that.
So, I only wanted to be a hypnotherapist in my local area in the UK. And then obviously the pandemic hit and I couldn't do that anymore. So I now offer Zoom sessions to people who want to give up mainly anxiety, but I do smoking and all the regular things and weight loss. I then wrote a course, and that's almost like having your own personal hypnotherapist at home. I think it's a really good idea. If you can't travel, if you're worried about going out, or if you're worried about anything from outside, you just sign up to the course. And again, anyone can do this. You don't have to have a huge amount of money to set yourself up. When I started the podcast, I started with a $25 USB Amazon microphone. That's it. I still use my secondhand laptop. It's an old Lenovo. I think it's 6 years old. So you don't need money to start a podcast. You can do it all on your phone, and you can reach out and affect thousands, if not millions of people all over the world, all from the safety of your own home. And just get out there. And I know I was listening to statistics yesterday. People are saying, I might have missed the boat because there are now 1.7 million podcasters. But actually, the true number is in the last 6 months, only 370,000 of them produce shows regularly. So the likes of yourself and me and all those listening who are just thinking about starting, do it. You've not missed out. You've got a real chance to share your message and increase your brand. Podcasting to me has made me a global brand. people say, "Oh, I've heard that calming anxiety," and then it's improved the SEO on my own website. So I've gone from last year being on page 10 of Google, which is nothing, to being the number one result, and that's without any paid advertising. Where else can you do that? You know, in fact, I get money to me from the ad rolls, so I'm being paid to advertise my own product. You can't do that anywhere else. You know, podcasting is, if you've got a small business and you're not in podcasting, you are seriously missing out. It's amazing.
100%. Yeah. I think what you said just completely resonates. And people are now launching podcasts, right? And getting the space for the reason that is as important as websites were when everyone or every business have a website, because that's marketing, right? That's one way to put your message out to the world and basically present yourself in the right way as well, because no other better medium, I think, right now than this podcasting medium, as well as maybe Clubhouse, to actually hear your voice and hear the kind of work that you can do and the kind of calming effect you have on everyone who's listening in.
Clubhouse has been an amazing eye-opener for me. So, you know, I know my show's been successful, but I'm still very humbled about it. But I live in my little world here in my small studio and office. It wasn't until I got on Clubhouse that I realized, okay, everyone's saying this. You've got this voice, you've got this approach. And that's now taken me out into other avenues where I'm now looking at voiceover work, and instead of writing my next book, it's going to be an audio book, and it's going to be purely audio. It's the lazy person's guide to feeling happy. You're that lazy, you don't want to read it, so I'll read it for you. So yeah, everyone, regardless of your personal preferences for phones. So I'm not an Apple user. I never have been. I'm an Android user through and through. But when someone mentioned Clubhouse, there you go. I went out, I bought myself a 4-year-old iPhone SE just to get on Clubhouse. And it possibly is the best investment I've ever made. I've made more contacts like your good self, but dozens of other people in my space, people who are at the top of their game. And when you think about it, you get people like Elon Musk dropping into Clubhouse, and you could be on stage chatting with him. Where else can you do that? And all for free. It's mind-blowing. And look at what you've created here. Did you ever think, say 3 years ago, that you'd be hosting all these podcasters from all over the world all together? It's insane. It's brilliant, Wayne. You've created something fantastic. Really.
It's mind blowing. It's mind bending. I think just like how you described it, right? 3 years ago, I wasn't even doing podcasting at the time. You know, I would never have imagined having a festival of podcasters, and also having you on the festival and coming us with your wonderful voice. So that's one of the things that caught my attention when I was on Clubhouse. I think we were on stage together, probably a couple of weeks back. And immediately everyone was awed, and your voice, your tone of voice, and what you share, the wisdoms that we borrowed from you, those were all inspiring. And I thought, instantly that I must get you onto the festival so that our Asian audiences can hear your voice, can see you as well, and check out the Calming Anxiety podcast, which I think is currently really successful. It's number one, or should I say, in the top 1%. Of all podcasts with a daily download of 10,000 every day, with 322 over shows already, right, since its birth. That's an incredible statistics. Do you get a lot of, do you feel a sense of achievement to see your show growing so rapidly and getting that massive number of listeners?
Yeah, I do feel a sense of pride, but it's more the fact that I can help even more people. So I do it from a background where I was a very troubled young person. And since I've learned how to calm those issues, as a paramedic, I can only help maybe 6 to 10 people a day. As a hypnotherapist, maybe 10 people a day. But as a podcaster, I'm now helping 10,000 people each and every day. That's what drives me. And I've got bigger plans. So later this year, fingers crossed, because dealing with other people who you rely on can sometimes be a bit difficult. We've got an app coming out, and that's going to be groundbreaking. Obviously, the calming anxiety app. But we're really proud of what we're putting into that. I think it will help even more people further and wider than I could ever imagine. And by the way, I have to say, love the microphone you've got. I've got the same one. It's a fantastic mic. So I was going to do it with the
Yes, it
microphone
is.
off, but I use a lot of plosives in my speech, so I thought.
Is that a Rodecaster Pro you have on your table? Is that a Rodecaster Pro?
No. It's the Zoom Live Track L8. Here you go. And
it looks wonderful. Yeah, it looks like a really expensive piece of equipment.
It's £200 cheaper than the Rodecaster one. Right.
Oh, it is really okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. And have you, before you hunt down or you select the right equipment, right?
Yeah.
Was some of the consideration factors? Was it budget, or was it sound quality, or was it because of ease of use? What are the considering factors for you?
For me, it's why did I go for this one? Mainly because the reviews were better than the Rodecaster one. I needed a certain amount of inputs, and also I needed the ability to bring in a mobile phone through it, which is fantastic. So I can, not that we're allowed to record Clubhouse, but I can do that through here, and I can talk to people over the phone on it. But then budget-wise, like I say, £200, $200 less than the other one. And it does everything. It plays jingles. It records to SD. So when I record my shows, I don't have to use the laptop and get interference from fan noise. It really is. People go for the Rode. I understand why, but this does as much. Sometimes it does more, and in other small areas it does slightly less. But it's fantastic. And when you mate it with the Rode Pod mic, you can't go wrong. Although I do use a Sub-Zero cloud lifter on it as well.
That's a perfect combination, and I like how you are putting your gear set up together in a really well soundproof room. It seems like some acoustic architectural specialists have designed it for you. Did you do it all by yourself?
I've done it all by myself, and I've done it purely from scratch. I knew nothing about it when I put it together November 2019. It's been a gradual process. Go on YouTube, learn, get some ad revenue in, and then upgrade. So I've gone through 2 different mixes, and I've gone through 4 different microphones. But now I wouldn't change a thing. It's absolutely perfect for what I need. And
what I'm hearing so far, right? The quality, especially the tone of your voice, is like the overall quality is just, it sounds so sweet, It's like I could definitely hear you talk for 24 hours, 7, It's like not just a calming effect immediately, because we are all facing this pandemic together, right? And everyone has the same anxiety, struggles, maybe even anguish, insecurities. And to hear your voice coming through on my headphones right now, it's just incredible. I know that you're helping your listeners with this unique blend of meditation and self-hypnosis, right? So how do we actually get started in terms of, is it easy to follow, and will it produce great results like instantly?
Yes, absolutely. Now, everyone who knows the old me from 7 years ago, before I had a massive mental health breakdown, and it was a thing of sort of wonder, and people at work still talk about it, to how I am now. I'm a different person, and everyone is amazed at just how forgiving for myself and others I am, how relaxed I am, how understanding I am. And it's purely through mostly daily relaxation. And get to do meditation because I record the shows and I don't script them. I just close my eyes, press record, and out it comes. And the emails I get from people who listen to it, how it's transformed their lives. Now, I have about 350 shows in the catalogue, and they're all there. You can just go through the list to find them if you're having trouble with sleep, confidence, panic attacks, hyperventilation. They're all done from a place of understanding, and they work, and they work for practically everyone, even some of my older sort of colleagues who maybe I've not got on with brilliantly in the past. They've used it and they've said, wow, thanks, Mark. That's really helped. So if you are struggling, you have nothing to lose. They're free. Just log in, sit down somewhere quiet, headphones on if you want, and just listen to what the message is and learn to take back control over your anguish, over the negativity that might be going on in your head, and you can get better. I'm living proof of it, and so are thousands of others that follow the show. So yeah, I hope to continue for as long as I have the health to do it.
This is brilliant. And you're helping listeners with your unique blend of meditation through your podcast, through your online courses. So how do you actually help listeners whenever they are ready to take back control using these guided audio sessions via your podcast episodes, which I think it really provides a great helping hand during these pandemic times, right?
Well, most people, they'll listen to a month's worth, or some people, it's their daily wake up. So they'll set an alarm. My podcast, I think when you want to grow your show, always be consistent. So my shows are uploaded 3 a.m. every day, so that when people wake up, generally Europe and then the Americas, they're on their phones or whatever they listen to, so that they'll wake up at 7 a.m. and they'll listen to my message of positivity. And then after a month, my hope is people stop listening, because then that's proved that they're now ready to look after themselves. People can obviously go on the course, but if you just listen to the show and make it a daily commitment, I can't guarantee it because I don't know everyone's personal circumstance, but I say to all of the people that I've met, just give yourself a commitment for the next 4 weeks. And the change is huge, because they start to have a dialogue with themselves and they start to treat themselves nicely. You've got to talk kindly to yourself. So many people, we're only human. You might drop your mug or a plate and you'll be so angry with yourself. Why? You're the most important person in the world, is you. And you cannot look after others, your family or your friends, if you don't look after yourself first. And that's proven day after day after day by the reviews or the messages that come into calming anxiety. It's just a message, not just of hope, but of genuine change, real change. And I am real living proof to that. I'm very open about my past. I was in a secure psychiatric unit at 14. So, I was a troubled soul, and now mindfulness and meditation, no drugs, just set me free. You can do it. You really can.
I think I fully understand why everyone calls you a champion of recovering from childhood PTSD, and what you have gone through and how you overcame, all these struggles, right? Now make you the best candidate, the best person to actually help the rest of the world, especially through these really unpredictable pandemic times, right? Where so many people are suffering. So I really love what you're doing. And of course, you specialize in not just one specific area, you specialize in so many other areas, and you cover them on your podcast as well, right? Especially IBS, OCD, phobias, even weight loss, social anxiety, smoking cessation, PTSD as well. Tell us more about all these other areas which you specialize in.
most people's issues, well, I'd say all of our issues, if they're to do with your body image, that they're all rooted right in here. And by opening up a dialogue with your subconscious, you can control everything. I mean, smoking and hypnotherapy go hand in hand. That's our number one thing. You can stop people from smoking so easily when you realize the root cause. It's a really simple situation that most people start when they're about 14 or 15, and they start because they want to fit in with the crowd. They're now in their 40s. They know it's unhealthy. They know it costs them too much, and they know it will shorten their life, but they still can't give up. And what we do in hypnotherapy and mindfulness is you have a chat to that 14-year-old part that is still wanting you to fit in with the crowd. And you simply say, look, to fit in with the crowd now, you need to give up. And that 14-year-old part of your psychology goes, oh, okay. And that's it. And it's that simple. And the same with weight loss and an addiction to sugar or fatty foods. It's all having these conversations with parts of us that are trying to look after us for a good reason, but are invariably hurting ourselves. And I just put them all into the podcast. It's having my podcast is like having your own therapist. And like I say, you can pick and choose. All the shows are labeled for what they're going to help you with. And if they don't help, they might push you on to finding someone who can help you. I mean, some people like my voice, other people don't. But if you find me, it will then take you off in different tangents where you can find others. And that's the beauty of podcasting. And it's free. Unless, of course, you want to join the membership site. And then you can just support the work, and that's another one for anyone into podcasting. It's never too soon to start getting some money back from what you do, because you are giving to the world. I'm lucky I live in the UK and I use Spreaker as my host. And from day one, I tick the monetization box. And I always remember my first piece of ad revenue, and it was 7 cents. And I posted that all over social media, and I showed all my friends at work, and they all took the mick. They go, oh, you're going to be rich on 7 cents. Well, it's running at 4 figures a month now. All right. And who's laughing now? Okay. And that comes in no matter what I do. And then obviously we can get sponsorship. So there are lots of income streams for anyone who's getting into podcasting. But don't just get into podcasting thinking you'll make money. Give a story, give worth first. And if you give from a place of real caring and empathy, you will be rewarded. It will come your way. It's fantastic, isn't it? Who would have thought we'd have been international broadcasters? I never thought this would happen. I'm just, I'm little old me in a very rural part on the peninsula in the UK. And now here I am chatting to you in a different time zone, different country. And we're sharing this message to help thousands of others. Wayne, you're awesome. Well done.
Well done, sir. And of course, you're helping us back. You're re-energizing us, and you're helping us with all your brilliant content. So can you tell us why the Calming Anxiety ethos is more than just a podcast, but also a way of life?
Yeah, because I give from a place of knowing. I really do it to help people. Every show is tailored to someone who is crying out for help but can't find it. I thought I was doing the shows for older middle-aged people like me. And then I looked at the data, the demographics. So when you do get your podcast, you must go to Spotify and claim your show on Spotify for podcasters. Because within that, I saw the demographic, the main one for my show are young women aged 20 to 34 in the US. And that shocked me. It also saddened me that so many people were crying out for help. But I was then able to Google what's trending for that demographic, what's affecting them now currently? What are their worries and concerns? And so I can record my shows targeting their needs with my own personal views on how you can bring yourself out of that pain. And then I am able to use keyword research in my show notes. And that, I think that's why my show has grown from 0 to 1.6 million in the short time it's done. And it's probably only going to get better, hopefully. Then I can serve more people. Yeah.
Do you see Clubhouse being an extension of what you do? As in, do you find that it's also part of the future of podcasting? We're not saying that the future of podcasting it will be Clubhouse. That means everything else like podcasting, what we are now used to doing, right? Those things that will be seized and will no longer exist. Social audio seems to be taking off in a really huge way in 2021. What are your takes about doing maybe some parts of your show over there, doing it with a live audience and having your listeners participate in even your content creation process, being able to go on stage and ask you questions directly? Do you fancy that?
Absolutely. I will be doing a lot more on Clubhouse. I had started doing daily shows on there, and I've applied for my own club room. Personal circumstances have got in the way, so in 2 weeks' time, this studio will disappear, and I move house. But I get a bigger office to myself, so I get to rebuild a studio the way I want, and I'll be doing weekly Clubhouse interactions and also a weekly YouTube live stream as well, where I will open up the doors to the audience so that they can learn and understand my take, and we can have question and answers. So I'll be much more interactive once I've built the new studio.
That's amazing. And we all are really excited about how your show will further develop and how you further engage your audience and your listeners as well. And we think that multi-channel is definitely the way to go forward for podcasting, because we just want more people to discover our content. And of course, you're helping more people in the same time, and everyone is now living and breathing in Clubhouse. That is the place where people congregate, and that's where the listeners are, right? So podcasters should embrace it rather than look at Clubhouse as a threat and, fully immerse themselves in the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for people like us, for any podcaster, you need to be on Clubhouse. And I can't stress that enough. It is purely audio, and see what it's done for both of us in such a short space of time. Would you have been able to pull in the amount of podcasters you have if it hadn't been for Clubhouse? Well, probably not. So, and like I said, I've met so many people who have opened doors for me, who've guided me. People love to help. And if you are out there watching this right now and you're thinking, I'm not sure, just do it. You've got nothing to lose by listening in. I use it now as my radio stream, so I can listen to shows from people who will educate me. Like, I'm just dipping my toe into cryptocurrency at the moment. It's the latest thing, but I can listen in on Clubhouse cryptocurrency rooms to get people's ideas. I don't have to act on it, but that information's coming in. And I listened in like to the guys who've set up Real Talk Podcasting. I know you've got them coming up. Those guys have got so much invaluable knowledge. It's fantastic. And they're giving it away. They want to help us small time ones, although apparently I'm not small time anymore. But I'm not a big celebrity. I'm just helping people, and the process is making it a bit of a brand. So yeah, Clubhouse, it's fantastic. And I will be back there, but I've got so much at the moment where I'm batch recording all my shows for a month, so that should I not get internet where I move to, I won't be letting my audience down.
This is great. There's so many podcast shows that I love, but unfortunately they pod fade. Sometimes they take a break without informing their audience. So it's like every week you're left strandling and wondering what happened to the podcast, what happened to the show, and how do I get my next fix? So it's really important that the podcasters everywhere are really consistent with publishing their episode, right? And continuously see action so that we will not miss, their voice filling up our entire apartment. I think this is what we all desire, to have your voice fill up our entire apartment and calming our anxieties during these pandemic times. It's so great to have you on this festival, Martin. Any last message or last words to our audience in Asia? And where can we actually check out the stuff that you do?
Firstly, all the shows are at calminganxiety.net, a really nice, easy URL to remember. And one small bit, I use Pat Flynn's Fusebox player embedded on my website. That is crucial for getting your SEO up. So that's an extra little tip. But you can just go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even use Amazon Alexa and just search for Calming Anxiety. And we're in the right way around. And look for that logo. So there you go. It's nice and easily done. Or maybe that logo. Will it come through? There you go. You can never have enough thing. Yeah.
You're crushing it, Martin. You have merch.
Yeah, I have merch. I have merch on my website. If anyone wants these t-shirts, yeah. Feel free.
We'd love to get one. So I'm going to be checking out your e-store shortly. And of course, we should support one another. And this great thing about the podcasting industry is that everyone helps out one another. It's probably one of the last, I would say, verticals or fields where you don't see a lot of scarcity mindset. There's a lot of abundance mentality, which I absolutely love. And everyone feels like they're part of a tribe, part of a community where we are doing this because you want to lift everyone up and raise the tide so that all boats can be lifted up together. Yeah.
Brilliant. It's fantastic, isn't it? Thank you, Wayne. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Martin. And have a great evening over there in the UK. And I'll see you again maybe next time on Clubhouse.
All right. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Looking forward. Bye-bye. And that's Martin Hewlett. His podcast that you must check out is called the Calming Anxiety Podcast. Thank you so much for those of you who are tuning in live right now and also submitting your comments while we are doing this conversation completely live. It's unedited, just like Clubhouse. Only difference is that we have our cameras turned on. So for your information, next month in March, we will not be doing a Podfest Asia via LinkedIn or Facebook. We'll be turning off our camera for the first time because we are going to pivot to do this entire festival on Clubhouse. And also, we're going to run a conversation series where we bring back our keynote speakers that you have, seen over the past 24 hours. They'll be back hosting together with me separate rooms where we have different topics where we will actually jam on and also invite audiences to come up on stage to ask us questions. So that's what we are planning to do next. And it's going to happen in March, week 1 and week 2. So stay tuned while we reveal all our speakers as well as the topics and all the rooms and all the links, right? So if you're not on iOS, please do something like what Martin has actually told us earlier on. Go buy a old, maybe even a used iOS iPhone will do, and get yourself invited to Clubhouse. If you need invites, just approach me. I have 7 invites at this moment. So main thing is to get everyone involved and participate in this thing called live podcasting on Clubhouse. And of course, this festival will be called Podfest Asia Clubhouse Live. So look out for information immediately after we wrap up this festival. Coming right up, Rish Tandapany, and one of our sponsor members, a great supporter of this platform and community, Podfest Asia. So we're so excited to have him come on board. Just maybe introduction and officially introduce him before he comes on stage. So Martin is somebody that I've admired and look up to for quite some time now. He's quite active on social media. You can actually hit him up with a DM on LinkedIn anytime because he's a really helpful person, and he happens to be living in Asia as well. He's in Hong Kong, whereas I'm based in Singapore. And we're very excited to have him join us because he's the founder and CEO of Trinkle. And Trinkle is a boutique thought consultancy in Asia. And he founded Trinkle in 2020 after serving in various leadership roles within the investment banking and brokerage industries across Europe, Middle East, and Asia. In addition, he currently advises multiple fintech startups in Southeast Asia. Rish currently lives in Asia and spends most of his time in Hong Kong, as well as Singapore, helping the social engineering, coaching, and neuroscience movements over here. He's also currently working with a Hong Kong partner on 2 podcast shows. One is called a Think Pod, and the second one is called a Culture Teapot Podcast. Brilliant names for podcast shows, right? So I'll get to ask him what we can expect from these exciting shows launching in 2021. And without further ado, Rish, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Wayne. How's everything?
I'm doing pretty well. I can't believe that I'm still able to keep myself awake after doing this since midnight yesterday. So I'm quite refreshed. Yeah.
I think you need to give some tips to everyone because there's either 3 Waynes in existence who are just kind of rotating, or you're just on some kind of program for staying awake, which no one can understand. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's insane. In fact, I decided not to do a 9-to-5 job, and I ended up doing this 24/7. So the irony, right? But to be really honest, I really enjoy talking to awesome people like you, and of course, Martin, who was on earlier as well. You guys are energizing me, and giving back as well. So I really appreciate you for agreeing to do this. Rich, by the way, are you using your Bluetooth headphones, or you're speaking directly into a laptop or a mic?
I'm using my Bluetooth headphones.
Okay, it does sound a little bit blurry. You might want to maybe adjust either your mic or maybe swap your microphone to your laptop instead to see which one works better. Yeah.
Let me just do that.
Sure, take your time. And we have plenty of time because tonight we'll be doing this for 24 hours again, all the way until tomorrow. So no worries on that. Yeah. Now I can't hear you for some reason. Hold on. You need to unmute. Yeah.
Better?
Much better. Now you sound sweet. Yeah, and completely sweet audio quality coming out from my headphones. So thank you so much for making the adjustment for us. So I'm going to jump in with the first question for you tonight. Tell us about your company. Tell us about these 2 incredible new podcast shows you have lined up for us.
Sure. So my name is Rish. I run my own thought consultancy out of Asia. What does that essentially mean? We help people think in a critical way, understand exactly what it is they're going through in terms of their thought process and some of the issues that they're going in life. And I can completely empathize with what Martin was talking about because there's different facets to that. So we're kind of split between consulting and coaching. Obviously, on the consulting side, we focus more on corporates and organizations, helping them map their organization, their human resources, things like that. And then on the coaching side, or I don't particularly like the word coaching, I'd say more guidance side, we actually help individuals navigate relationships, stress, some of the issues that they may be going through. And in Asia, there's a lot, I mean, the COVID is not only perpetuated a viral issue with COVID-19, it's also perpetuated a huge mental health problem. And, you've been in Asia most of your life, and, there's a huge mental health kind of stigma and taboo attached, right, to Asian culture. And, in Trinkle, we're trying to help everyone through that. We're doing a lot of work in the podcast space, mostly as guests on things like Martin's show, where we're trying to add a different angle so that people can really understand their thought processes and what they're going through and explain it to others. Like you said, we're working on 2 particular podcasts at the moment. One is something that Trinkle is doing directly. It's essentially going to talk about topical Asian issues. And by that, I mean what Joe Blogs would want to talk about on the street, whether it's crypto, whether it's, housing costs in Hong Kong. We're going to reach out to the average Joes and Janes on the street and try and get some opinions and some values and some conversation from them. And we're deliberately targeting kind of that class of people, everyone and anyone can see it, and there's not going to be any elitism or anything in that. And that's what it's called, the Think Pod. The second show, which I'm even more excited about, is a collaboration I'm doing with a young Hong Kong influencer called Lian Nam. It's called the Culture Teapot. And the idea behind that is to have a kind of to and fro between East and West and kind of see how in Asia people of different cultures mingle and how they handle different topics. So, for example, education. You probably have been through this yourselves. Asian parents love their education, and you got to be a doctor, Wayne. You got to be a lawyer. You got to be an accountant, right? And in the West, it's just different. The way they handle that type of conversation, that type of thing is different. So we're creating a forum where we bring in a lot of people from the West, a lot of people from Asia, and try and come up with some overlap and Venn diagram where these emotions and these conversations get together. So, as you said with a lot of your guests, now's the time to be in podcasting, and it's unbelievable the amount of support we're getting.
Was the idea for these two shows you're doing, or someone else's idea, suggestion, or was it like a request from one of your clients or partners?
So it was a request. It was actually, ThinkPod was a request from a bunch of Chinese clients that I have. So I have a bunch of clients in mainland China, and they were like, you know what, in China, where a lot of things are controlled, shall we say, right? We don't really have the forums to speak about the things that we're speaking to as coaching clients. So then I was like, well, I wasn't a big fan of putting myself out there, but then I thought, you know what, I'm talking to people about this. I'm doing a lot of webinars. I'm doing a lot of seminars and things like that. I might as well just put it on a podcast. And the ideas just started percolating. And, this goes back to probably what we'll get into later with kind of pod fading, where you just need to have a continual iteration of ideas. And I just kept getting coaching clients say, can you talk about that? Can you talk about that? Can you do this? Can you give examples for that? And that's how that manifested. With Leanne and I, it was a bit different. I mean, she's just a kind of bright spark, and we reached out to each other and basically realized that there was a gap. There was a gap from me coming from this kind of corporate, kind of academic background, and she coming from this really kind of socially empathic kind of understanding of what people are going through on a day-to-day background. So we got chatting, and sometimes how it is with collaborators, you just hit it off. And the Culture Teapot was born, a bunch of logos was born, a bunch of ideas about what we could do with born. We've already recorded, so we've done a bit of work on body dysmorphia. We're about to talk about families and relationships in our next episode, and we're churning out ideas on that. And I hear a lot of people kind of saying, I wish someone could talk about that, or I wish I could hear or eavesdrop on a conversation. And it's about this closed door conversations which we want everyone to have access to, and that's exactly what we're trying to create.
This is brilliant, Rish. And I could hear the excitement from your voice as well when you talk about these two podcast shows, right? You reminded me of a Wall Street banker who was on the festival last night. And he's also a recently turned podcaster. And you are from a similar background because you have leadership roles in investment banking and brokerage. So now you're also a podcaster, and welcome on board. And of course, in terms of like your superhero stories, right? We definitely want to know who are your podcast superheroes. What ignited your passion about podcasting?
So as I mentioned before, I'm really academic. So what I did was I graduated, I went to uni, I just went into investment banking and did a pretty good job of kind of moving my way up. And then in my mid-20s, I said, you know what, I really like to learn. So I did my MBA, I did my CFA, I did things like that. And I realized that actually, instead of getting the old, doing the old mechanism of going to the library, getting the textbooks, or going on Amazon and buying everything, I was like, I'm gonna cheat my way through this. So I went online, saw the MBA show, which is a big podcast show in America, and basically just tried to learn through podcasts. Then I realized that it wasn't actually a cheat. And I was really impressed at how these academics and these guys who had lived through careers that I was living through had been able to create this audio content, which completely allowed me to educate, right? And self-educate and do things. And so then I just got on this kind of bandwagon of listening to the kind of guys in America, especially like the Sam Harrises, the Andrew Sutherlands, these kind of critical thinkers who inspired me to kind of move away from what was essentially a capitalistic corporate life and do what I was really passionate about, which is kind of more neuroscience, cognitive behavior, and stuff like that. And you know how it is in America, and your guests have kind of illustrated this massively. Like, the scene is so big there. So whatever niche that you think you want into, there's going to be a podcast for it. I mean, there's probably going to be 5 or 6. And then things just kind of spiraled from there. And I kind of just use that as my academic trend. And it's one of the things that I'm actually looking at kind of disrupting is the whole ed tech industry and how podcasts can play a pivotal role into that. And then I realized that, you know what, there's this huge movement in the States, which accounts for nearly I think it's $700 million of revenue every year as of last year. And in Asia, it's kind of still, right? I mean, there's still that, it's still growing. And the word I use is kind of infantilizing. So it's infantilizing, meaning it's still in that infant stage, waiting to break out into puberty and grow. And I just talked to loads of people, and they're like, Rish, why do you listen to podcasts? I mean, like, just go on YouTube, man. It's easier, right? And I'm like, well, actually, I then went and studied it a bit. I went and looked at kind of my neuroscience studies, and there's this idea of distance, and I really like this idea of distance. When you watch TV, there's a camera between the camera and the actor. When you watch TV, there's a distance between you and the television. Whereas in an audio content kind of environment like us, it's just your headphones, right? And you become immersed. And one of the things I advise anyone getting into podcasting to think about is that immersion factor. How immersed are you in your content? Now, if you think about IG with Instagram, WeChat, Facebook, it's pretty in the moment, right? It's like, you're doing that. I'm doing the motion which everyone does every day, and how much you actually grab or how much information actually sinks in is actually quite relative to the individual, and it's probably not that much, right? And I found podcasting was just a sponge, and I was immersed in it, and I wanted others to be immersed in it. And I loved it because, one day I was listening to podcasts about mindfulness with Sam Harris. The next day I was listening to the NBA show, the NBA show. The next day I was listening to, things about football and Liverpool's championship triumph. It was crazy. And I just thought that was something I want to be a part of and propagate through places like Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, where people are still a bit hands off on it. And, I think things like Podfest 3, things like what you're planning in March, when I heard the commercial break and I heard what you guys are planning in March, we'll just take this to the next level, and hopefully we can be part of that.
Yes, definitely. You're part of the program. I've actually inserted you on week 2. So we're going to start a room and invite everyone else from Podfest Asia community to join in and listen in while you actually share your wisdom with us. We can borrow your wisdom, especially when it comes to this particular industry that you're in, and you're helping to actually, change the way traditional forms of consultancy, right, in the current mode, that are really not sufficient for modern business. And I think that your approach with Trinkle, right, it's definitely is less speculative, more direct. So I like the fact that you're seeing more action on podcast shows, on 2 shows, and you're agreeing to do this together with me, with us at Podfest Asia, and moderate a room together so that we can talk directly to our audiences and your clients as well.
Well, 100%. I mean, one of the interesting things about your previous conversation with Martin was actually your whole take on Clubhouse. So I got on Clubhouse, and at the beginning I was like this guy who's dating a girl for like the first week or the second week, and I was nervous and I was wondering, how do I find my niche? When do I speak? When do I not speak? I mean, everyone's just kind of throwing stuff, and you have that kind of nervous toxicity because even though you're used to speaking in front of loads of people, in Clubhouse, it's much more in your face, right? It's much more, there's a bigger audience immediately. It's not just generated over a period of time. And I mean, I'm all for being educated on this because I really personally think I've just messed it up and ballsed it up and just not shown interest the way I probably should have. But I definitely think it's a trend that people need to probably get on. I think even if it doesn't take off the way everyone's assuming it will, it represents another avenue for people to talk and chat and have those communications, which probably currently isn't there as much. And I still feel that there's a divide between, say, true podcasting and all other types of social media. And if Clubhouse can fill that gap, then, the more the merrier.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that you're in and we're all in this together. So I'm very excited about what we're going to do together in March. And of course, these rooms that we're going to create means that Trinkle can present a room and then we can just bring our audience to listen in. And I think that's an incredible thing. And what a collaborative space really means, which is basically to help one another during these pandemic times and support one another, right? So it's great to have your support as well. And of course, we want to find out more about exactly, why there's no limit in terms of how, you approach this. And you're not just limiting to a podcast show, you're willing to experiment. I think you're also a big fan of different podcasters that you just mentioned, Sam Harris, just to name a few, right? So how did you hustle in the beginning to build a resume, for doing your own startup, for actually founding your own company? Do you have to give up like a high-paying role or a job or a career to do what you love?
100%. I mean, I gave a lot up, especially in terms of, when you reach the age, I did this change when I was kind of mid-30s. And at that age is kind of when you think you should be kind of spending as much money as possible, traveling the world, kind of, buying cool cars, buying houses. And, I'd made enough kind of good decisions in the past that I was able to then say, you know what, now I'm going to follow my own passion, right? But you don't go into that. You don't just wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm Rish, I'm going to just do it. You go through all these anxieties, self-esteem issues, worries, and especially when you've got a network around you who've either been in banking their whole life or been in some level of kind of professional services, then, you're not filled with people, saying, go for it, go for it, go for it, right? And I kind of just made the decision, you know what, and I talk about this at Drinkle a lot. I kind of formed my own GPS, and what GPS kind of basically stands for in a short summary is to find my gifts, my passions, and how I could monetize those with servicing. And I created this diagram for myself, and I realized that actually my passion lies in speaking and understanding people. And it's a gift I have because I've been doing coaching for a few years by then, and people kind of just opened up to me. And then I was like, well, how can I monetize this, and how can I bring it out? And then I found my niche in Asia. I spent a bit of time in Seoul and in Singapore in particular, just kind of fleshing it out and getting a good set of clients behind me. But it doesn't come without its pitfalls. I mean, there were times when you question yourself. I mean, for every Jordan Peterson, there's about 1,000 failures, right? There's about 5,000 guys who just fade away and you've never heard from them again. And not that I want to be a Jordan Peterson, but it's someone you can look up to because they've gone from an academic clinical psychology background where they just made ridiculous amounts of money on one side, and now they've decided to follow their passion on another side. So, you surround yourself with people of those, you hear the noise going in. And ultimately, I think COVID hit me in a way that it didn't others. To me, I as soon as COVID hit, I saw it as an opportunity. I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm not going to just sit in my home and be quarantined forever. I'm going to do something with my life. And I took the bull by the horns. Sometimes you just need to do that. It's like going after a girl or chasing the car that you've always wanted. You just need to sometimes just dive in. And I kind of just did that. And luckily, I've come out on the reasonable side. And support. I think the industry, the people you've got around you, and podcasters are not. They're not footballers. They're not influencers. They don't have that mass appeal. They're more seen as these kind of conservative, nerdy type of guys who sit behind a screen and through an audio channel. And that's sad in a way because it doesn't reflect the amount of hard work and actual prosperity that goes on with podcasting. But it's actually, I think it's kind of cool that you have this kind of quiet introvert community that helps each other out and builds everything together. And it doesn't need to be showy. It doesn't need to be out there in your face. And everyone's helping each other. And I think things like Podfest go a long way to helping because I've learned so much in the last 24 hours or roughly than a year of YouTube videos. Hearing the likes of the speakers yesterday, hearing the likes of you comment on what they're saying, it's another level of knowledge that I never would have been able to get just by being on YouTube or reading those articles. And you need to immerse yourself in that, and that's what I did. And hopefully all goes well, and I come out green on the other side.
This is brilliant, and thank you so much for lovely comments as well. I think we support each other, and you're helping me back. Do you know how good this conversation is? It's helping me a lot as well to have you, share your wisdom and share your experiences with us and your stories, of course. And I just noticed that you're a Liverpool fan, right?
Well, that's controversial. We're not getting into this because the whole world is listening. So I'm actually a Crystal Palace fan, okay? And before I hear all the wisecracks of being a Crystal Palace fan, it's because I grew up in Crystal Palace, or next door to Crystal Palace, okay? So I'm a huge Crystal Palace fan. However, as most Asian kind of Gen Xers, or boomers, sorry, which my parents were, my dad is a Liverpool fan, or he's either Liverpool or Man U, right? That's how it goes in Asia. So my dad was a Liverpool fan, so it's impossible to turn on a Saturday afternoon or just zone out without him going on about Alan Hansen or Graham Souness or something like that. So I've become an adopted Liverpool fan. Obviously, when they're doing badly like they are now, I kind of just shy away from the conversation.
I see. So do you used to attend games at Selhurst Park? Is that your home ground?
Well, so that's my home. That's the home ground, and I remember I used to walk by there to go to school every day. And I mean, I don't know about how it was growing up in Singapore, but like in London, it's a pretty brutal place, right? So, we talk about broadcasting and how it can educate people, but I mean, the things I heard, and you talk about audio content, the things I heard out of Selhurst Park were like, this threw me off. I mean, I was like some 10-year-old kid, and I heard all these kind of crazy things being said by this crowd. And I remember that's the first time I was like, wow, the world is a big place, and I know very little about it. So yeah, Selhurst Park was my little home ground. It's actually an embarrassing thing to admit, because everyone hates Crystal Palace, or at least they don't know about Crystal Palace, right? Which is kind of worse. At least if you hate it, you know about them. But most people don't even know about Crystal Palace. So yeah, you've got me there, Wayne.
It's great to know a fan who supports Liverpool and Crystal Palace. To be honest, sometimes I really admire the atmosphere at Selhurst Park. You don't get that from many English grounds anymore. Like, they're all so staid and boring, right? Like, I was in this conversation in this room, actually. I think it was organized by RC Online. So I was co-moderating that room as well. So some of them were sharing their experiences at football grounds, and Selhurst Park is one of those grounds with the best atmosphere. Of course, during non-pandemic times, right, when fans packed in, and they don't have like huge numbers of people watching the game, but in terms of the atmosphere, they create a noise. I think you are another club that have fans waving flags, so I think that's really unique. And Anfield is another place, of course, where the noise from the Kop is just 1,000 times louder than on TV. So compared to some other clubs, right, I'm not going to mention, but they are like 1,000 times quieter than on TV. We could actually go there to attend the match. But Selhurst Park and Anfield are different class.
Well, it goes back to that immersion factor that I was talking about with audio content, right? So a football stadium is very similar, because if you can have the world's biggest stadium, but if that noise is kind of just being disparately kind of moved out, then it doesn't add anything to the value. But somewhere like Selhurst Park is pretty intimate. The guy next to you is literally next to you, right? You're pretty much hugging him, and anything that's said, it kind of permeates through everything. And I love the fact, the one thing I did love about Clubhouse immediately was these fan rooms, because in the absence of an audience, a live audience, at the ground, or the ability to go to the pub and enjoy yourself with a huge crowd, you only have something like a Clubhouse room to kind of really push it out there, right? And I think that's amazing, and I think they should really do that for a lot more events, whether it's musicians playing like violins or classical pianists or whatever. They should find a way of facilitating that.
Will you be taking some of your passion into Clubhouse as well? Because you already have 2 podcast shows, right? And then now you're going to be doing more like rooms where you talk about Trinkle and some of your other knowledge and wisdom to do with your profession. And will you be also bringing your passion projects and your hobbies into Clubhouse?
Well, it's something I've been kind of conceptualizing and trying to figure out how it all fits into place. It's something I definitely want to do. And the reason I want to do it is because my whole mission with Trinkle is to speak to as many average, normal people as possible. And I use those words in the most polite way, right? I mean, everyone's obviously not normal. Everyone's always obviously not average. But, I want to speak to your general Jane and John on the street. And it's hard to find them online, actually, other than Clubhouse. Because if you go on LinkedIn, your search criteria is very linear, right? It's dictated by industry, it's dictated by you knowing their name, etc. IG is pretty similar to an extent. I mean, you're pretty fixated on certain interests, whether it's Kylie Jenner or Bieber or whoever. It's fixated in a certain way. Whereas Clubhouse seems to be very, very all over the place and generic, which is something I like. And I think someone who does have as much interest as me, whether it's neuroscience or career coaching or even Star Wars, which I love, right? I'm going to find enough people that share that there. And if that's something that can then be leveraged further to listen to my podcast or even come on and be a guest on my podcast, then even better. So I am definitely thinking about bringing it in. I just want to do it in the most optimal way. And this is where I think learning from guys like you, learning from guys like the other guys in the festival who've really optimized it properly will be important for me. And having heard what you've said, I'm definitely going to do that over the next few weeks.
This is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to so many other collaborative projects we can embark on together. Recently ever since I started this festival, right, I've been like meeting up and having coffee sessions with like average of 5 podcasters a day. People I've never met before, but because of this festival, I'm meeting more and more of them. And every time when we meet, we'll be thinking about like what are the other hobbies or passion projects we want to do, but we never had a chance to do it. And we were thinking like, now that you have this app Clubhouse, we can just start something and just ping people in, and suddenly it's a show, right? With a live audience who are interested in what you have to say. So one of the really miraculous thing that actually happened a few days ago. My dream is always to appear in a stage production, and I was never an actor, but I would really love to experiment. So there was this person who basically wrote a brilliant script, a film noir true crime series. He has came out with 3 episodes, and he invited me to be one of the co-leads, where I play, one of the suspect of a murder case. So I was able to do a live reading on Clubhouse together with 2 other voiceover actors. And then we are thinking of doing this completely live and tape the show next week, so that it becomes a podcast show. This kind of serendipitous moments where you bring people together and it suddenly fulfill your lifelong dream to do some passion project, right? It makes things possible, and I'm so glad, Rish, today you came on to the festival. You told us about what are things that you do and some of your passion as well. Not just all these brilliant things that you do in your profession, but your hobbies as well. I think there's so many ways we can collaborate on. So I look forward to jamming with you, riffing with you all over again during the post-festival event, the conversation series live on Clubhouse for Podfest Asia. And present a room together, presented by Twinkle.
No, we must. Look, I think everyone can learn something of each other, whether it's to progress themselves or to confirm a belief they have, or to even just inspire them to do something completely different. And I think that's a really important thing. And if something like Clubhouse and even more of these festivals, right, help that, then I think people should be on board. I really want to jam with you. I think it'd be fun. And ultimately, that's why we're doing a lot of these things, right? For it to be fun and bring a smile to a lot of people's face. So if that happens, then even just sign me up straight away.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support, Rish, and really look forward to you have on our festival again. So you have a good evening over there. You're in Hong Kong, right? Which part of Hong Kong?
Actually, right at the moment, I'm not in Hong Kong. I'm supposed to be in Hong Kong, and there's a bunch of people who are quite angry that I'm not in Hong Kong. I'm actually stuck with you in Singapore. So.
Oh, yeah. Which part of Singapore?
Near Tanjong Pagar.
Tanjong Pagar, not too far away. Let's meet for coffee downtown and discuss some of these exciting events and projects coming up next. So I look forward to sit down and have an in-person conversation with you next time over coffee, yeah?
Let's definitely do it, my friend. And once again, congratulations on a fantastic festival.
Thank you so much. It's a date, so I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers, man.
Thanks, Rish. That's Rish Tandapany, founder and CEO of Twinkle. Remember to look out for his 2 podcast shows, the Think Pod and the Culture Teapot podcast. I think the names alone are so intriguing and so interesting to me. I would immediately dive in and listen to your first episode based on the name and the title of the show alone. I think how you name a podcast is really important. Like the Think Pod, this has something to do with probably neuroscience, and of course, thought leaders talking about what they do. Culture Teapot, that seems to be a more casual, maybe conversation where the average Joes and James can actually be involved in. So like these 2 shows will probably bring another angle and another perspective, and helps to add to this thriving, podcasting culture and space that we're in. And we see so many fantastic things happening, lots of action, and of course, more podcasters coming on to the festival as well to share with us about why they do podcasts. So I think we are now waiting for our next guest, and let's see who's coming and whether she needs any technical support. Let's see. I'm looking at my calendar, and my calendar says that the next guest slated for 9 p.m. Actually, we have actually overshot 9 p.m. Let's see. 9 p.m. Lauretta Alabons. I'm not sure whether she's going to be coming on. Let me just get her confirmation. Are you coming on yet? So just to prove that this is completely live, right? It's not edited. So we have sometimes, either overrun certain sessions, or sometimes we have guests that appear late. But it's perfectly okay because we don't have any structured advertisement slots or spots that we need to adhere to. So nothing is on this festival has to be strictly based on the timing that we have set. And of course, it's a very loose conversation as well. So sometimes we talk about serious stuff, especially when we talk about ad tech, right? Or we talk about monetization, or we talk about gear talk, and even talk about the shows and the content and the value. But sometimes we also go to the other direction and be more casual about it. So that's what this festival continuously, reinvigorate me to do more sessions like this, and not just over on LinkedIn, on online space, on Facebook. This is also streamed live to YouTube and Twitch, by the way. And we know that there are also audiences in every multi-channel. And of course, we have replays available via our good hosting platform provider, Omni Studio. Thank you so much for sponsoring, your hosting platform services for PodFest Asia. And of course, we have so many support from our sponsor members as well. So while we wait for information from Lauretta, let's see whether I can give her a call. Let me see who else is on our program tonight. I think we do have 3 more guests coming up, all the way until 11:30 p.m. And then after that, I'll take a 4-hour break and finally have my dinner. And then we will continue to do this all the way until morning. I think all the way we have a breakfast session and a short break in between before we actually go to our lunch session. And that will continue until, I think, right after 2:30 p.m. We have more exciting podcasters. There's someone who is going to launch his new podcast called the Red Bersatu podcast. It's a Liverpool-themed podcast where he talks to Indonesian fans about Liverpool Football Club. And we know that there are 70 million Liverpool fans in Indonesia. So his show is going to definitely create a splash because it will be the first ever Liverpool supporters podcast that is conducted entirely in Bahasa Indonesian. So that's another thing that we're going to be really excited and looking out for. And I think he's going to be coming on in the afternoon tomorrow. So yeah, quite a number of great things coming up festival we can look forward to. And I'm just looking at my calendar again. After Lauretta, we have Saurabh with his brilliant Recast podcast. I think recently he has a guest who is a spiritual leader. So it's like a nice break or a nice change for his new season 2. He used to interview just C-suite and entrepreneurs, but for his season 2, he's doing something different. He's bringing on a spiritual leader guru to talk and also discuss with him on the trending topics of the day. So it'll be nice to get that insight and perspective as well. After Saurabh at 10 p.m. tonight, we have Rovik, who's coming on at 10:30. Rovik has a really interesting podcast. He's also a public service server, so we were very interested to find out from him how he juggles so many plates, so many things on his plate. So after that, it will be Heather Osgood from True Native Advertising Agency. She will be diving into the world of ad tech, dynamic ad insertion, and all these really techy terms that podcasters should know. And these are the resources and knowledge that should be sharing free to everyone who is still going to listen in, continue to listen in until we end our broadcast at about 11:30. So that's the program for tonight, our dinner session, or the night session, I should call it. Maybe because I'm feeling a little bit hungry right now, think of dinner. Yeah, that's until 11:30 p.m. tonight. We have what we call a super late night session starting at 3:30 a.m. I can actually call this a super early morning session. Starting at 3:30, we have Jordana Guimaraes, the founder of Fash Innovation Talks. So I met her in NYC, I think slightly over a year ago. She invited me to basically attend part of a Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week program, this amazing talk series where she invites everyone, from the fashion industry, from tech startups to fashion designers to people in marketing, doing fashion marketing. And it was an eye-opener for me. I think one of the reasons why I was inspired to do PodFest Asia was because I attended her show, her event, her conference in New York City a year ago called Fash Innovation Talks. We're going to bring her back on to talk about her talk series and whether she's also seeing more action on Clubhouse these days. So she will be on at 3:30 a.m. After that, 4 a.m., we have Mark Sullivan. Mark Sullivan will be talking about his snowboard project. He's the editor of Snowboard magazine. So in Asia, we don't get a lot of snow, especially in Singapore, but very interesting subject for us because, we would really love to go to Japan, and skiing and things like that. So I think for the snowboard project, he's bringing another perspective probably his podcast is a show where he interviews people who are really huge on sport and snow sports especially. So the Snowboard Project probably has also some interesting content to do with snowboarding gear and technology. And obviously, we want to bring him on so that we can get to be introduced about his podcast show and get to find out what are the highlights or interesting episodes that people in Asia should actually find out and listening to. So Mark Sullivan coming on at 4 a.m. And we have 4:30 a.m. Helen Garcia. She's coming on to actually, provide us some insights into her new podcast called Who You Needed Podcast. That's another interesting one. Followed by Sam Kamani. He's the founder of a startup called Ansidia. So his podcast show is pretty interestingly named. I think it's called Got Money and Money is for You podcast or something like that. I might have the name of the show wrong, but we'll get him to come on and clarify for us later on. So he's another podcaster that we're looking forward to jam with. 5:30 a.m. Katie Brinkley will be coming on, and he owns and founded a company called Next Step Social Communications. So social communications, that has to do with social media marketing. And of course, she's seeing a lot of action in podcasts as well. So we have her on to tell us about how podcasts has helped her to generate more leads and also convert more clients. Kate Brinkley at 5 a.m., followed by Lindsey Graham. He's the founder of Airship, and he has a network of podcasts, not just one podcast, but he has an array of podcasts with different content. Some of them are charted really highly on Apple Podcasts, and you see his network of shows dominating in different categories. So we're going to find out about how to build a network of podcasts. Lindsey Graham, founder of Airship. That'll be 6 a.m. After that, Lindsay Padilla. Lindsay Padilla is the founder of Hello Audio. And Hello Audio is another interesting, I would say, tech platform for those in the audio space who wants to use her platform to generate more live events like this in a way where it's more palatable. So we're going to have her come on to talk to us about Hello Audio. And that's going to happen at 6:30 a.m. All these timings are in Singapore time. So please do your conversion for your respective local time zones. That will be followed by Peggy Bree Tam at 7 a.m., where she'll be talking about her company, Blank Room, as well as a new podcast that she's launching on Podcast Asia. Followed by Oliver Bank at 7:30 a.m. So from 3:30 all the way until 7:30, I will still be sitting in front of the camera and talking to different podcasters around the world. Oliver Bank is from UK, and he's going to be talking about The One Who Got Away, which is a really interesting show where he invites participants or anyone to just drop an audio clip, and he will actually replay those clips on his podcast about relationships that went away or connections that didn't end in a positive way. So that's another great, interesting show to look forward to. And Rob Ranieri comes on at 8 a.m. I believe he's calling in from Australia sometime around 8 in the morning. So he owns and he found this company called Ranieri & Co. We'll definitely be very interested to talk to him more about his particular company and what he's doing on a daily basis and some of the interesting things he's doing in the podcasting space as well. Followed by Sharon Taylor, another fellow Aussie down under, and she'll be, I think, calling in from either Melbourne or Sydney. And we'll be jamming about the recent acquisition of Triton as well as Omni Studios, which is owned by Triton. Recently, there's an acquisition and some interesting development there. We're going to be finding out her career story, how she started Omni, and eventually, with this great news about the acquisition by a big tech firm and how she's feeling these days. I think there's so many good news she'll be sharing with us. And, even you just start with providing maybe hosting service for podcasters, and your company eventually becomes part of a bigger, scaled up company that's acquired by a big tech firm. So we're going to find out the process. I think the beautiful process of starting her own company right to these achievements. So Sharon Taylor, founder of Omni Studios, will be coming on 8:30 a.m., followed by my good friends from Clubhouse. I met them and was in a few jamming sessions with them in Clubhouse, together with Tanner Campbell, Pedro Maciel, and Roman. They are from Portland Pod, and they recently started a new company together. I'm eager to find out whether they started the company after Clubhouse or they actually were already toying with starting this company before they met each other on Clubhouse. And they are from Real Talk Podcast. So they'll be talking us through what they are working on currently for Real Talk Podcast. And maybe we make some of the topics that we've been chatting about in Clubhouse over the past couple of weeks, especially when it comes to like the world of 3D audio, immersive audio, and how podcasters can level up their game by doing by leveraging on technology that allows their storytelling to be brought up to another higher level. So Tanner Campbell and friends will come on after that. And after 9:30 a.m., I'll take a 1.5 hour break before I come back live again with Peter Birch. Peter Birch starts a podcast called Talking Health Tech. So that's a really interesting show that we should check out, where his show talks everything about health tech, health technology. That's really interesting, and one of the industries that actually scaled up or became really active during these pandemic times. I think they're seeing many traction these days. So definitely want to delve into health tech together with Peter Birch at 11 a.m. and followed by Harrison Crum at 11:30. She's going to come on together with his partner to talk about their marathon team podcast. So I've always been dreaming of doing my own marathon competition and getting involved in marathon running. And I think these guys will help me to be more educated about this space. And through their podcast, he's educating beginners like me on how to start your marathon. Should I say your next marathon project. I will call it a project because it's a massive thing, right? So they come on at 11:30, followed by Yogi Pandowo from Indonesia, now based in Singapore. He'll be launching his new podcast, Rich Bersatu Liverpool Podcast, which is conducted entirely in Bahasa Indonesian, targeting 70 million Liverpool fans in Indonesia. Followed by Randy Kim, someone that I met on Clubhouse, I believe, or either on Facebook. And he has a really interesting podcast called Ban Mi Chronicles Podcast. So from the sound of that name of the podcast, you could feel how Southeast Asian it is and whether he interviews people of Southeast Asia as well as Asian Americans on his show. Very interested to dive in and have a conversation with Randy. And followed by Regina Laco. She's based in Hong Kong, and she's going to be talking about her Impact podcast and some of the great work she has done in Hong Kong, helping podcasters as well. Followed by my new co-conspirators, Edric Poon and Anna Ong, two voice-over artists. We are embarking on a new project that is entirely done in Clubhouse. It's basically a true crime film noir live stage production where it's done over Clubhouse, where we'll be doing live reading in front of a live audience and taping the show at the same time for our podcast. So both of them are from Clubhouse Drama Club, my two new co-conspirators. They'll be on at 1:30 p.m., followed by Hayden Ng, the founder of ASEAN Digital Fashion Week. I recently congratulated him because his festival is now available to stream live on podcasts. No, available on Apple Plus, Amazon, as well as Netflix, I believe. So you can actually stream his festival on all these OTT platforms. How incredible is that? So we're going to find out more from Hayden, how or when we can start streaming his content as well. And then a 5-hour nap time for me, I think is something I really look forward to. Because that will give me the fuel to continue our night session tomorrow, Friday. So for the last home stretch, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 podcasters will be coming on for the night session. I'll get to jam with people like Isabel Martin, the founder of Indus Insights, which is a future of music festival. And they're making the debut in March. So she'll be coming on for a conference organizer to conference organizer conversation. So if you're interested in running your own festival, I think you shouldn't miss this. 7:30 p.m. on Friday night with Isabel Martin. Followed by my conversation with Jeremy Au. He comes on 8 p.m. And Jeremy Au is doing great podcasting, with so many thought leaders in the startup world, especially in the tech industry as well. So we'll be jamming about his podcast and about some incredible rooms he's currently hosting on Clubhouse, which are attended by over hundreds of people every session, almost every night. So we're going to find out more about Jeremy Au during our chat, 8 p.m. on Friday, followed by Rina Sander from Norway. So she hosts a podcast called Dat Mordier India, where her show is all about Indian and also Norwegian relations, about how leaders from both countries, partner up with each other and to do great things in their respective countries. How Indian leaders are adapting to basing themselves in Norway, and vice versa. Norwegian leaders who are doing great things in India. So her show, Dat Mordier India, is something that's really fascinating. So she comes on at 8:30 p.m., followed by my good friend Yi Moon Chong, and see, I got his name read correctly, probably because of a lack of rest. So Chang Moon Yi is from Nielsen Media, and he's also one of our proud sponsor members for this festival. And he'll be talking about his new show, Database Asia, which puts the spotlight and deep dive into conversations with thought leaders from every industry, and not just confined to retail, but also in the media space as well, in the broadcasting space, on how they measure, how they actually bring insights, and how they actually share stories and knowledge from what they do over at Nielsen Media. So he'll be coming on at 9 p.m. on Friday, followed by Tori Reed and Patrick Howell, my new co-conspirators as well. We are gonna actually launch a new festival called Podcasting in the Desert Festival. A bit like Coachella, right? But it's, instead of bringing a music festival in the desert, we're going to do a podcast festival in the desert in LA. And they're based in the West Coast of America. So I'll be able to get their thoughts about whether it's feasible to do desert podcasting. So that's something to look for at 9:30 p.m. Followed by Billy Andrews and Louis Tonis from Germany and England, respectively. They'll be coming on at 10 p.m. That show is all about football, and they're bringing the best of the Bundesliga together with English Premier League. So their show is called the 50+1 Football Podcast. So I'll get them to come on the show, on the festival, to talk about their latest exploits, and also what are the kind of work that they're doing for sports broadcasting in Europe. So that's going to be 10 p.m. Friday night. And we will end our Friday session with Dr. Philip Merritt. Dr. Philip Merritt is someone that I was introduced to from a friend from New York, Ryan Jackson. Shout out to Ryan Jackson. So he basically texted me, I think 2 weeks ago, about this topic, synchronicity. I think we were both watching the same show on Netflix called Crime Scene. The Vanishing in Cecil Hotel on Netflix. I think it was a show that intrigued us because we both of us love true crime genre, and we have the same interest in music as well. He loves Skinny Puppy. I love Skinny Puppy. So there's this genre where we are able to find out about, for example, all these background stories behind the vanishing of this girl from Canada, I think. Who disappeared in Cecil Hotel, which was located in the middle of Skid Row in LA. So it was a show that brought up this term to my attention called synchronicity. Whether you believe in synchronicity, where events seems to just fall in place, or people just appear in your life, or even technology, right, just become a solution when you need them the most. So we are not going to be diving into the conspiracy theory, because Ryan asked me to connect with Dr. Philip Merry for a reason, because he is a thought leader in this space. He's the authority on synchronicity, this particular topic. In fact, Dr. Philip has done tech talks around the world on this topic about synchronicity. And so I connected to Dr. Philip Merry based on the introduction by Ryan Jackson. And guess what? Dr. Phil Merry actually lives in Singapore. And I think that's another one of those moments when immediately, it's like synchronicity. That word just appear on top of your mind immediately. Like, how big a coincidence, right? That someone that talks about the very thing that we want to talk about is actually based in Singapore. I sent him a DM on LinkedIn and he agrees to come on to the festival. Just got confirmation. We haven't done a speaker review for him yet, so we haven't uploaded or published our speaker review graphic, and also put up a bio of him on our social pages yet. We're going to be doing that immediately after I go offline. And he will be closing the Friday night session at 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. So most of you will be asking, what about Tony Fernandez? I think you've been looking at this scrolling banner appearing throughout the entire festival, right? He will be our last keynote speaker on Monday, lunchtime, 12:45 p.m. So that's prime time for people in Asia. You'll be able to tune in and be able to hear from the man himself, Tony Fernandez, CEO of Air Asia Group, which is an airline, by the way, that I fly a lot on because I love traveling and I always find any given opportunity to go to a new Southeast Asian city anytime. And normally I booked it over AirAsia. So I think he's a perfect person that we're going to talk to, and really excited about meeting him finally over this space. And the reason why we're able to get him on the festival is because he has a new podcast that is launching, where he interview famous footballers around the world, as well as entertainers and tech founders like will.i.am from Black Eyed Peas. So we're excited to hear what he has in store for us, what is going to be the name of his new podcast. So Tony Fernandez will be launching his podcast on Podcast Asia. And that will be the last session live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, as well as YouTube. I'm going to also simulcast his talk during lunchtime Monday, 12:45 p.m. over on Clubhouse. So for those who are unable to come online to watch this, you can actually hear our conversation on Clubhouse as well. So it will be Tony Fernandez and me. Will be doing this Monday. Then it will be a wrap. That will be the end of the third virtual event. Again, we have 50 speakers. We have brought it up to another level again. We started with 20 speakers for our first edition in December. And in January, we had 41 speakers. For our third edition, we had a mammoth 50 speaker all-star lineup, including Tony Fernandez. And in March, we're going to take a rest, but not exactly, literally, because although we'll be lying on our beds, we'll be doing a live Clubhouse festival. And people like Rish Tandapany, I spoke to earlier on an hour ago, he will be one of the people who will be presenting a room, and I'll be co-moderating. We'll be inviting everyone from Podcast Asia to attend these events on Clubhouse. Currently, we have 20 who have already signed up. So we'll be moderating 20 rooms in March, running this entire Podcast Asia festival over there in Clubhouse. So you won't be seeing our faces. We'll probably be doing the summit lying on a bed and you wouldn't be able to find out. Maybe like even dialing in or phoning in, right, while we're in the toilet. So that would be a really interesting format. And I think it's great because it's one way for us to also reduce our carbon footprint, because doing this live in camera, in front of a camera, means that we're consuming more power. Of course, there's lighting and things that we are turning on for this 48-hour marathon live stream. It consumes a lot of power. So we're going to pivot and do this in Clubhouse in March. Whether we'll do that permanently, I highly doubt it, because there's something about doing this, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, which is also bringing different things to the table. And we also want to see each other. I always love when I can engage in conversation, we can feel the person, And Clubhouse is a great format because it's ephemeral. People are able to even talk about their vulnerability sometimes even more, because they're more open about it when they're more relaxed, instead of having to sit up straight right in front of the camera and having to put on the makeup before they're ready to come on. I think that adds to the burden sometimes of doing a live videotaping session that is live stream at the same time. So probably Clubhouse will take away these sort of anxieties or these burden, and we'll be able to experiment with the format to see whether it's a continuation of this free-flowing format that we're doing over here on Podcast Asia. And something to look forward to on week 1 and 2 of March. Probably I have a feeling that will be extended to week 3 as well. So it will be a festival that's no longer just 3 days, 2 nights, or 3 nights, 2 days. Over in Clubhouse, it will be spanning weeks. So it seems to be easier to do, but it's also probably going to take up more of our time as well, because we'll probably be there every night doing different rooms during this Podfest Asia Clubhouse Festival. So I actually have a cover artwork already prepared for that. I'm thinking of announcing it maybe straight after Tony Fernandez finish up session with us. I think we'll review that poster for this Clubhouse live session for Podfest Asia immediately after Tony Fernandez. So we'll premiere it later on. I'm just waiting eagerly for my next guest to come on. It's 9:42. Let me see on my Calendly who's coming up next. So we missed Lauretta Alabons. Hopefully we can re-invite her back for a Clubhouse jamming session in March. So let's see who's next. Saurabh. Saurabh is supposed to be on at 10 p.m. So in about 15 minutes time, we'll be able to catch Saurabh in action as well. So I think by the time he comes on, I can actually go off screen for a while and disappear and maybe grab a bite while he talks about his podcast show. I think it'll be so interesting to listening to that. So in the meantime, we still have like 17 minutes. So let's see, 9:30, yeah. And Lauretta, 9:30. Saurabh at 10 p.m. Yeah. So in the meantime, maybe let's do a replay so that I can maybe go grab a drink or something, make myself a cup of coffee. What you're going to be watching next is a replay of our first ever Podfest Asia. It's a session that I really enjoyed a lot, because one of the reasons why I started Podfest Asia was because I attended this festival called South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And it was a really eye-opener for me, because in a way, it seems to be an earlier version of Clubhouse, where you're able to walk from room to room and listening to different keynote speakers delivering different topics and discussions. So what I really enjoyed was that you could just, spontaneously walk into a room, right? And then suddenly you see the Winklevoss twins talking about cryptocurrency. And if you feel, kind of bored with the topic, you can actually leave the room, go to the room next door, and then you'll be diving into the world of people talking about podcasting. Or you could just go downstairs and a live band will be doing a showcase, and on 6th Street. So it's like South by Southwest is the mecca, I would say, the epitome of how festivals should be run. And I got inspired to do Podfest Asia after I attended South by Southwest. So this is basically a conversation one-to-one where I had the chief programming officer of South by Southwest coming onto the festival to talk about how they birthed South by Southwest, how they grew it, scale it up, and how they are pivoting during the pandemic to do live online events as well. So yesterday, Martin Atkins from Pigface, 9 Inch Nails Ministry, the drummer of all these awesome bands, came on to Professor Asia to talk about his upcoming keynote session on South by Southwest Online as well. So there's a connection there, obviously, and we are hoping that one day our Professor Asia community can also do a showcase South by Southwest together and be part of their program. So that's one of the goals that we're embarking on next, and we're working towards. So I'm going to replay this. And but before that, let me just play this particular video that's done by my good friend Jolene Siana. Shout out to her. She was on This Morning Singapore time, where she's premiering a teaser video of her current audio video project, which basically pays homage to live events, live music events. And I'm going to play you this video first before I play the South by Southwest interview. Let's see. Yeah, this video is still right here. Enjoy this video. It's a like 2.5 hour clip conjured by Jolene Siana. I invited her on the festival because she's making something really interesting creatively, because she's requesting audio clips submitted by people that she met around the world. And audio clips, we are basically thinking about our feelings about live events being canceled during the pandemic and how we are coping without live music. So she's going to be combining those audio clips, edit it down to a video audio project. And this is the teaser video for it. No audio yet, but it's just a teaser. So it allows you to maybe have an insight or a first take of what we can expect from her audio video project. Check it out. Welcome back to Profess Asia. This is our day one night session. How are you, my friend, Saurabh?
I'm doing very, very, very good. How are you, Wayne?
I'm great. And seeing your face again, I think 2 weeks after we had coffee together, right? This is
That's
fantastic.
right.
To be able to do this from the comfort of our home, to do a conference, from the comfort of our homes is amazing. So great to see you again, my friend. So tell us what you're up to, though, ever since we had coffee together 2 weeks ago.
Well, just sort of busy with work and busy with recording, some more episodes that I'm going to release very soon. So I think that's what keeping me busy.
And we know that Recast Podcast is really one of those memorable podcast names that will stick to your mind. And I love your logo as well, I have to admit. And it's well designed by your team. And you are having this fun, right? Doing podcasting, I could tell.
Oh, absolute magic for me. I mean, it's such a great stress buster. It is such a great learning exercise. That I just can't thank myself enough for getting into this space. I think I had I'd sort of started this with a very different intent, but I think once I recorded my first and second show, I think it was just a pure magical learning, and I think I'm just enjoying every bit of it. And you don't look tired at all. I mean, you've been doing this since morning, and sort of trust me, I'm so inspired and I'm so energized, just with the idea, and then sort of looking at you, you are just. I think you have like bundles of energy, and I think just by talking to you, I think I just feel alive again, and I just don't feel that it's 10 p.m. here in Singapore. I think we can chat all night, and we can keep this entertaining conversation going. So kudos to you. I think you make people like me, feel inspired and motivated and also energized.
Thank you for your lovely comments, my friend. You are helping me back by agreeing to do this together with me. I can only do this, right, because you guys are the fuel. Without the fuel, I'll probably be lying on the bed right now because it's 10 p.m. It's nighttime, right? But I'm still up because I'm re-energized by the energy that you're giving back to me. So, yeah, I'm a little bit fresh because I had a nap earlier. So, 100% ready to do this with you. And for other, stellar all-star casts that are coming on later on. So we're going to dive in and talk about your recast because it's an amazing podcast. I love your season 1, and I'm very hyped up for your season 2. Tell us, there's no substitute for an authentic conversation. Why people should listen to recast, and why season 2 is, again, another not to be missed event, I would call it.
I think you actually touched upon a very interesting phrase there. Authentic conversation. I think when I started with this venture, I didn't have big plans. I think the only thing that I had told myself that we'll keep this real, we'll keep this candid, and I think I had some questions that were burning inside me, and I sort of really wanted answers. Plus, I think I also had some thoughts, which I needed to share, with a wider group of people. And I thought that probably broadcasting is actually a better way. I was too shy, to come on camera to begin with. So I sort of started with an audio format, which is what season 1 is all about. But I think for me, why authentic conversations are important, and why I think that there is no substitute for authentic conversations, because I think a real conversation can get etched in your memory for a long time. I mean, if you've had, and I think everyone has had sort of real conversations with their friends and family, with their colleagues, and I think there are some conversations that have a deep impact on you as a person. And I think what I like about an authentic conversation, that I think it has some human values that are imbibed within it. So I think the first of that is trust. I mean, you only have an authentic or a credible conversation if you think that you're speaking to somebody who's credible or who's trustworthy, right? And I think that goes without saying. I mean, if I'm sharing a personal story with you, I'll only do that if I know you, if I can, if I want to confide in you. And I think that speaks a lot, right? So I think the first component is that of trust. The second, I think, when you do a real and a candid conversation, at times, you can also get challenged. because you are being real, you are saying what you're thinking, and at times somebody who you are speaking to will just come with a very different perspective. And if it's done in a very respectful way, I think you sort of get challenged in the right way. I mean, I was recording a show with sort of one of the spiritual facilitators, and I think he had an amazing sort of journey, because I think he sort of graduated from the best business school, and he sort of went to the best engineering college, and then he started his own foundation. So the way I framed that question for him was, why did you choose the road less traveled? And he immediately responded and he said, do you see the assumption? Because I've done something, you want me to behave or live my life in a particular way. And I said, yeah, I actually didn't think about that. The way I framed that question, probably I had those biases. And I think somebody as educated as him, I think just, sort of clarified that with so much of respect, with so much of courtesy. But I think, he just challenged the very notion. So that's what an authentic conversation, would do. It'll challenge you. And I think once you get challenged, you get energized. You really want to, put your best foot forward. And I think that's a great spirit, to sort of live with. And of course, I mean, once you have an authentic conversation, I think there is that connection. There is that sense of belonging, right? If I'm sharing a life story with Wayne, I would remember that for a long, long time. So that's something I think why I think authentic conversations are here to stay. They've always stayed, but I think now with this beautiful podcasting medium, I think we can tell stories that have touched us, and I'm pretty sure that there is a tribe out there who'll sort of listen to this story and would say, wow, I can see a part of me in that particular story. Sorry, I'm losing you. I no, I just cannot hear you. There's some
Oh, I
problem
just
with the
forgot that
audio.
I actually muted myself. So you were that you really inspired us with your podcast, and of course you have this you have this spiritual facilitator who is opening up season 2, right? When is this episode dropping?
So I think the season 2 episode number 1 is already out. I released it, actually a couple of days ago. In fact, I think I released it on Monday. So I think I'm just sort of, getting good feedback. And I think, just to my surprise, because I think my episode 1 is around business and spirituality, which is a very interesting topic for me personally. And I wanted to have a discussion, around that topic. You would be surprised that the initial audience that I'm getting for that particular topic is all 50 plus. There are those folks who are like businessmen, they are traders, they've spent their lives sort of doing actually what they are doing, and they just found that content amazing, and they said, hey, we have to sort of listen to this. And I'm just sort of getting so many rich comments and inputs from the elderly, which I never thought, I think, was my sort of target audience. But I think that's the beauty of content, right? I mean, you just cannot predict who will like it, why they'll like it. And I think that just gives me more confidence to sort of keep doing what I'm doing, so that I can reach out to as many people, and then sort of get into a great conversation and form connections.
It's great that you're highlighting that it's important to deep dive into analytics and find out the age group, right, of your majority of listeners. And now that you have basically struck gold by targeting this group of really, I would say, really valuable listeners from the age group who are definitely in very high positions in organizations that they are leading. And these are the kind of listeners that are really valuable, especially to even brand advertisers, I would say. So like this is just a tip for those podcasters out there who don't care about analytics, right? It's important to know exactly who your listeners are to find out their age group, whether they are from the age group that really resonates with your content. I think is really important, so they can continuously make all these great podcast episodes that help out with delivering more authentic conversations that listeners can listen into, right? So we know you have done season 1. You have many wins from hosting your recast season 1 for sure. What can we learn actually from tuning in to season 1, including the upcoming season 2? Maybe give us a sneak peek.
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting that you asked that question that, what are the wins? I would rather sort of look at that as a journey, because I think the moment you say a win, I think you are sort of defining a moment and it sort of ends there. Whereas I think for me, I think it's been a magical experience, like I shared, and I think I'm on a journey now. Journey of meeting some amazing people that I actually wouldn't have met if I wouldn't have started sort of recast in actually first place. You would be surprised how the term recast sort of came about. So I'm a researcher by profession. I think that's what I do. I sort of study people. I study their behaviors, and then we advise brands and actually governments around communication and sort of around policy decision, or like actually around sort of policy design. So I think the word re stands for research, right? And cost actually sort of stands for sort of reaching out and actually broadcasting. But I think the word recast in itself talks about change. I think it talks about transformation. And I think I just thought that it's very powerful, because I think it sort of really signifies all aspects what I do. I do research, I want to broadcast, I want to bring about a change through conversations. And I think recast as actually a term sort of got born. And at times I think these things happen in a funny way. I was sort of driving on the East Coast road, and I think everybody who's tuning in from Singapore, I think would sort of actually relate to that. And I just asked my wife, I said, which of these names you like the most? And she said recast. Even I can get it. Even I'm not a researcher, I'm not into podcasting, but recast means you're actually trying to change something. So I said, okay, we'll just sort of go with that. And I think that's how the word recast sort of really came about. And then I've sort of really tried to stay true to the core, and what and why I really started it. This is about changing mindsets. This is about transforming your existing opinions. This is about keep moving. This is about being fluid. This is about being adaptive. So every topic that I touch upon, I think I sort of try and bring out journeys from my guests as to how they have transformed their lives, how they have changed, how they have adapted, how they have adopted. And I think once you start listening to that, so I have entrepreneurs, I have business leaders, I have artists, I have spiritual leaders now, I have storytellers, I have actually techno marketeers, I think, who are just sort of sharing just some very amazing stories. Season one, I've spoken to an entrepreneur. I've spoken to somebody who used to sell carbon black in Europe, right? Which is a B2B commodity. And then he actually shifted to Malaysia and sort of started doing research and media planning. Now, what that shift is, I mean, that's unimaginable. So I think when I spoke to Rama, I think he just gave this beautiful story as to how his life unfolded, and how he ended up where he is today. And and I think now he runs a very successful AR/VR venture. Now, so much to learn from there, right? I spoke to Vineet, who's a poet, and now he's a YouTube poet, very very popular, within the Indian community. And first of all, I used to listen to his poetry, but when I reached out, I thought he'll not even reply. But he was so kind and he was so humble, and he said, "Hey, if this helps you, I'm sort of willing to come and tell my story." So I think I've just been inspired by these different life journeys, these different individuals. And I think this is also the medium that made me introduce to you. And I think when I looked at Podfest and what you are really trying to do and how you are really trying to change the game, I was just so amazed, and I said, okay, I don't know whether people like my show or not, but I know that I'm in the right place.
And I know that I like the title of your podcast. Recast is such a great name for a podcast. And kind of also relates to what you do, right? Because you're Chief Operating Officer of Black Box Research. So research, recast just fits. It's like everything's synchronized. And we know that you lead a talented group of people in Black Box Research to help drive Black Box mission of offering authentic intelligence to their clients. So what you're doing is just a perfect fit, with what you do in your day job. And then you're doing a podcast that brings in all these awesome guests, and we can all listening in to all these amazing conversations. So I'm so glad that you're doing this and you're continuing with season 2. Why did you choose to launch season 2 with this business and spirituality theme with this top guest, Adaria Prashant? I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Why do you choose him as the...
Yeah, I think just for the international audience, the word Acharya stands for teacher. Or like a facilitator, and his name is Prashant. So I think he adds that title, Acharya Prashant. Okay, so I think when I started season 1, I didn't know, how many episodes and what am I actually going to do. I think this all started, with me buying an iPhone extended mic, and just going to a couple of contacts that I knew in New Delhi, and I said, hey, I just want to do podcast, and would you be okay if I just sort of come down to your office and to your home and just sort of record our conversation. And this was like almost 2 years back. And both those individuals, I think, were very, very graceful. They said, sure, Saurabh, we would sort of love to have that conversation. So I sort of went with a very minimalistic setup, started recording my show, only to realize when I came back to Singapore with those recordings, those were just not usable. I think they were so poorly recorded. There was so much of background noise that even I, didn't want to hear that again. And I think that was, the start of my podcast journey. I mean, I was a failure. I think I was an immediate failure, when I started podcasting, because I didn't know the equipment. I didn't know, what to use. I just thought that it's conversation and I can do good conversations. But I think podcasting was much more than that. So I think for like next 8 months, this was all on back burner. I think, those 2 files were kept somewhere, and, I didn't bother to even touch it, till one fine day when, circuit breaker started, and, we started, speaking to each other virtually. I said, hey, I have to, sort of bring that out and see what, actually what can I do with it. And that's when I think I just got very serious about it. And I said, okay, I have to invest in the right kind of equipment, because, at least the sound, because I think that's what all people would hear. It has to sound nice, or at least it has to sound in a way that there's no disturbance. And then I started listening to podcasts, and I sort of educated myself, got a couple of people's help, who started helping me in my post production. And here I was. I mean, I released my first show, the first episode. I released the second, I released the third, and I just kept reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and they were so kind on saying, hey, we would love to do that. And I think I sort of did that for about 4.5, 5 months, because I was releasing one episode per fortnight. And apparently, I think if you look at the topics, I think they all just beautifully started threading together. I was speaking about my industry topics. I was speaking to a storyteller. I was speaking to an entrepreneur. I was speaking to a poet, and I think they all had that sort of thread of recast running through those interviews. And then I took a pause. I said, okay, I've sort of done my season 1 up around 8 episodes, which is credible enough. I think just sort of let me spend more time in sharing that. But however, I think once you get addicted to speaking to people and getting inspired, I think you just want to be I think you just want to come back in the game. So I think season 2 started, and then I realized that, hey, because I'm recording my voice, no harm in also recording the video. We'll see what we have to do with it later. And I think that's when I started recording videos, and I shared with, I actually shared it with a couple of friends, and they said, hey, we would prefer watching your video more than your audio, because we are actually not the audio folks. And we said, hey, there is a tribe out there who's just devoid of this content, just because they don't want to listen. They are like more a visual. So season 2 was all about putting it on YouTube, and I think that's the journey that now I'm on, and I'm exploring. Let's see how it'll pan out. I'm actually still in very, very early phases, but I have a very great lineup of speakers. I mean, after Acharya Prashant, I think I have Roshan, I think, who you now also know. I mean, a great guy, filled with so much of energy, has achieved so much in life, but still so humble. So I think I'm also now speaking to him. That's my next release, and then I'm again recording another one tomorrow with the storyteller Anjali, and I think she has some fantastic corporate stories to tell, and how she's sort of actually turned a few organizations just by doing effective storytelling. So and then I'm speaking to an author in UK, who's written a book, how governments should be. which is a fascinating topic. So I think he's bringing in principles of organization behavior, and I think he's written a whole book around how governments should operate. Now all of that I think is such fascinating content, that I'm excited about releasing it as soon as I can.
I'm super excited as well because I could feel, the enthusiasm, the energy, you're making it and you're replaying it, right? These are all the fruits of your labor. And it's well produced, I would say. It's very well produced, great cast, great guests, and the stories that are being told there is incredible. So I definitely want to ask you, like how you would actually reflect on your podcast journey so far, because you have told us that you failed in the beginning in terms of like bringing back really high quality sounding episode, but you failed forward, right? You actually improved on that, pick the right equipment, gear, and environment for your next episodes, and then you launch in a really big way. And now I really love how you market your podcast as well. I just love those audiograms that you put out, those snippets where you kind of like put the spotlight on your guests, and you replay certain snippets which are so insightful for us to hear in, to listen in, and it entices us to want to click on your link and go to your podcast episode and deep dive and listening to the whole full program. So I really love how you're doing this. Can you maybe reflect on your journey so far, your experience as a podcast host so far, and tell us, how you would actually build this franchise further in 2021?
I mean, because you spoke about how you sort of like the audiograms, I think what I've realized, with listeners or with viewers, I think there are all kinds of viewers and listeners out there, and hence I think the attempt here is to get a bite size, a snack size, and a meal size content, on the offer. So I think people who are time starved, where it's very difficult to capture their attention, I think a bite-sized content works really, really well. And I think that's where I have my teaser. I think my teasers, for a purpose, I think one clip is no more than 5 seconds. That's the YouTube bumper ads, right? I think I've sort of taken that as the reference. 5 seconds. And I think if I can deliver a snippet, who knows how far that can go in actually making people sort of attracted to my franchise. Then there is snack size, where I'm actually sort of releasing 1.5 to 2 minutes long conversation, and that's just about one topic. So I think like with Acharya Prashant, there is a 1.5 minute clip that I'll release very soon, which is around sustainability, and he's just talking about sustainability. So I think I've just taken the best parts and I've sort of stitched that together, for consumption. And then there is a whole meal. I mean, you go on my YouTube and you can see a whole 45 minute episode. I mean, if actually that content sort of excites you. So I have something for everyone. And hence I think for me it's not about marketing strategy, but I'm just playing to my audience, because I know there are different kinds of individuals with very different kinds of preferences. And if today format allows us to deliver those smaller packets, why not? Like I said, to answer your second question, where am I going with this franchise? I think this is the word that you gave me today. I was not even calling this as a franchise. Wayne, I have a rule, and I hope that I will stick to my own rules, sort of till the time I can. For me, theater and podcast, to an extent possible, I would not work really, really hard to monetize two of my passions. I have a day job. I sort of work for this great organization, which is Black Box Research, and I think it's a very fulfilling experience. But of course, at the end of the day, you're an employee, and you sort of do get your monthly injection of salary, that gets credited into your account. I think what money does, I think it puts a very finite goal, because I think the moment you start thinking about money, I think you have to do certain things in certain ways, which would be expected out of you. I mean, if say for example, if you are looking for sponsorship, you would want to sort of get to paid social media so that you can have more views, more downloads, and I think that's the journey that you will have to be on. Now, I'm not averse to that, But I think for me, theater and podcast, I think they are more of learning mediums. And I think whatever I learn, I think I just want to share that with the wider community as well. Because I mean, if somebody is watching this and they get their 5 seconds of inspiration dose, no harm, right? I don't want them to thank me, or I just don't want them to congratulate me, but I do want them to get in contact and start connecting, start speaking like you and me did. So I think for me, I don't know where I'm really going with this franchise, as you call it. I think I'm on a journey. I sort of did the first 8 episodes. They were great. I think that gave me a lot of encouragement to record the next 7, which I'm in the process of doing. And I think in this journey, if I meet successful people, if I meet sort of great podcasters, and we co-create something together, which this industry hasn't seen before, I think that would be great. So for me, I don't have a definite plan. I don't want to have a definite plan when it comes to recast, because I just want to be fluid with this venture, and I just want to keep flowing as and when those thoughts and those ideas sort of come in my head.
I love this flowing idea, and to let nature takes its course, right? And not agonize over things like monetization or sponsorship. Like these are the things that, sometimes podcasters, they forget that they are in the trade, or they're doing this in the first place because they want to escape math. They don't want to worry about the numbers. They don't want to worry about figures or dollars. And the moment when they start obsessing with numbers, that's when, like, why are they doing this in the first place? And of course, you start to look until you find something bad. So, like, maybe sometimes
I just don't want to kill this opportunity for you, because I think you run a very successful pod fest. So I mean, if there are sponsors out there, please don't take it otherwise. I mean, if you like Wayne, if you like me, please do come in. But I think what I'm really trying to say is that I don't want to push for this. I mean, if the content is great, I think it'll attract the right kind of people who will come in contact, and I think we will be able to sort of create some more magic. So I think for me, I'm not running behind it consciously. If it happens in the process, through connections, why not? Because I think we all want to reach out to 7 billion people in the world.
Exactly, 100%. I really love that. And I like that, you focus more on building really meaningful connections that can actually, help you either with how you find answers, be it, I don't know, life, career, everything else, right? Like I do podcasting because I want to connect with the universe. So quite similar to what, you were talking about as well. And there are so many great things as a result of podcasting, right? Podcasting has basically changed my life. So when I hear your story, it really resonates. And I want to hear more about your superhero stories, especially for your podcasting heroes, right? Who are your podcast heroes, and what ignited your passion about podcasts?
I think that's the best thing about podcast. I think there are no superstars. They are humans that you can connect with, right? I think unlike cinema, where there's an actor, who you're watching on the 70 screen, and you just sort of tend to disconnect yourself and sort of think of that person as the superhero. I think what I like about podcast is that I think each one, who's either speaking, listening, or sharing, I think they are heroes in their own respect. So I think that's what I really like about the medium. I think it's very relatable. And hence I think I just sort of scroll through so many different kinds of podcast every day. At times I just like the voice quality of the podcaster, and that's why I'm just hooked to it, right? I mean, I just sort of like listening to that voice. At times the content is great. So say for example, I think I've been a marketer. My knowledge of finance has been pretty sketchy, but it was high time that I sort of started learning about mutual funds and how to invest in markets. So there's this Indian podcast by the name of Paisa Vaisa. I think he has very relatable sort of content for people like me who are like first time investors. And I sort of tend to get a lot of learnings from there. And I said, hey, there'll be so many people out there who also want to learn about storytelling. There'll be so many people out there who want to learn about marketing. There'll be so many people who'll be out there who want to learn about entrepreneurship. So why not? I think let's pick a topic that excites you, that intrigues you, and sort of throw it out. I think there'll be a lot of folks who will catch it and who will get hooked onto it. So it's interesting that you said that who are my podcasting heroes. I think people like you, I think, inspire me more. I've said that probably now 3 times, but I truly feel it, and hence I sort of I'm saying that repeatedly. So yeah, no real heroes, just humans behind the mic doing what they do best.
Yeah, that's why podcasters are our tribe. We love each other. We inspire each other. Like sometimes when our podcasters who are like wondering, I have nothing else to say, or I don't know what kind of show I'm going to make next, then listen to your fellow podcasters' shows because their content inspire you. So I get inspired when I listen to your podcast, and that's the thing that
I'm actually part of a podcast club which is based out of India. So I just sort of was recently included in that. I was quite surprised that I was one of the older ones. I think there are podcasters who were like 18 years old, 19 years old, and they're like choosing topics that are so niche. And I think almost like 80% of them were in the fiction space, which apparently is exploding. I mean, I think what you and me do, I think with your CMO podcast Asia, and even with Recast, I think we are in non-fiction space, which has its own followership. But I mean, I would sort of love to do like a fictional sort of podcast content, which will be amazing. So I was inspired by a 19-year-old, I think, or in fact I think he was a 22-year-old who was talking about how we perceive our job life would be, but when we enter our first job, how different it is. And he's just bringing in sort of other millennials along with him, just to understand how that shift has been, and what your education system doesn't really prepare you for, and how you face that reality and how you sort of cope up with it. It was such a niche topic, but I've gone through that process and I said, wow, if I was like a 19-year-old, I just wouldn't be doing podcast. Probably I would be partying somewhere. So I was again so inspired, and I think that's the kind of tribe who we call as the digital natives, that we have to learn a lot from. You and me are not the TikTok generation, right? So I think we sort of still have to look up to them now and say, hey, just teach us those skills, and so that even we can be changing and recasting ourselves with time.
Recasting ourselves. I love that word, and I think you mentioned about niches as well. I think someone was on a festival earlier this morning. I mentioned that the riches are in the niches because the more you niche down your show, right, the more loyal listeners will stick around for what you're conjuring up next. And I love the fact that you're willing to also, experiment with fiction podcasts, more drama, serialized podcasts. There's definitely a big genre where a number of people are following, true crime or serialized podcast series these days, right? That's why they're always like dominating the charts for a good reason, because great storytelling. Like what you just mentioned about this Gen Z or millennial who are coming up together to do about storytelling around their fears and also how they're coping with these, having to work for someone and navigate around the corporate world. These are the real fears that they feel, and to talk about it, that's very therapeutic for them when they create a show themselves, right?
True. Absolutely.
So it's really amazing, and I'm really looking forward to see what you're up to next. I just want to share, there's a project I'm embarking on with 2 voiceover actors in Singapore. Recently I've been meeting tons of podcasters, right, including you. I'm meeting like 5 on average, 5 new podcasters a day ever since I started this festival. And it's really an enriching experience where I learned so much from you guys. And they are also giving me tons of great ideas. And recently we came together because there's this new app called Clubhouse, right? I think I invited you as well. So it's like Clubhouse is seeing so many projects been spin-off, or you can see people launching new shows as well. We're actually doing a live reading of a stage production where I play one of the co-leads. I'm actually one of the suspects in the murder case. So it's definitely a true crime, film noir inspired serialized podcast series. And we are going to experiment by taping the whole thing, and do live reading on Clubhouse. And 2 other voiceover co-conspirators, I call them, they are on board as well. So, what we can even do, right, is character around, one of the roles that you always dreamt of playing, and get you involved as well. Because, like the option is limitless. You can basically script in other characters and turn this fun thing into a real podcast that probably, you're creating a new baby, right, and deliver it to the world and see whether it sticks or you resonate with the audience. Are you up for it?
I would love to join. That group. I think it just sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Amazing. So it's something to look forward to. And I also want to inform you that we'll be taking this PodFest Asia to Clubhouse. Next month, we'll be taking a break from LinkedIn, Facebook, the Twitch, and the YouTube of this world. We're going to turn our camera off. Also, as one of the ways to reduce carbon footprint. I think it consumes tons of power, right? All this lighting and electricity.
It does.
Turning the camera off, meaning that we're only using an iPhone, and to do it while we're lying on a bed and do a conference when we're lying on bed, I think it's something that I actually look forward to after sitting upright for 48 hours, So we're going to do that on Clubhouse. So it will be a PodFest Asia live in Clubhouse event. I hope to insert you in as well so that you can come back and we can open a room where you talk about some of your recast shows and episodes, and maybe you re-invite some of your previous guests as well to come on Clubhouse. So you'll be basically recast presenting a room, and I'll be helping you to co-moderate and bring in the audience for you as well. So it'll be something that we can work on together for this March event, probably going to happen on March 1st or 2nd week. So I'm looking forward to your participation.
Sounds like a plan. See you on 1st on Clubhouse this time.
It's a date. So I'm super eager and looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Thanks for agreeing to do this. And thanks for coffee the other day and the cake as well. Yeah. Really love the cake.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Just keep this going. Keep this energy going. That's the most important thing.
Thank you, my friend. I look forward to see you on Clubhouse. Bye-bye. Good night.
Cheers. Bye. Good night.
Cheers. Rovik, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Can you hear me? I'm great. Yes. Finally, I can put a face to a sexy voice, because I really think that you have one of the most unique voices in Singapore. So it's so great to see you on screen. Yeah. How's it going, my friend?
It's good. It's a long Thursday. I've had a pretty long week, but I'm glad to be in the virtual studio with you.
And detoxing from Clubhouse, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to balance it out. It's been almost 2 months since I started using Clubhouse quite regularly, and you gotta find your groove, And I'm still on it a lot. I'm definitely not over it yet, but I found some balance, hopefully.
I'm still trying to find a balance, and I think that luckily this festival has been planned way ahead before Clubhouse. I think I only joined Clubhouse 3 weeks ago, or maybe slightly longer than that. But this festival was supposed to be slated for these 2 nights, these 3 nights and 2 days since over a month ago. So I'm just super glad that I can put my phone down finally, detox from Clubhouse, just meet people again, because I have to feel my audience sometimes. If I don't see them, I feel that we are less connected. I'm not saying that Clubhouse makes you feel less connected. It's just that it brings different feelings, right? There's so many things I love about Clubhouse. Do you love Clubhouse so far?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's a balanced diet, right? For example, I have a book club that I've been meeting with for around 3 years now. And we always use Google Meets. So we use a video, we talk to one another. And of course, there was a very natural conversation on should we go to Clubhouse? And I remember thinking to myself, well, actually for this group, I value seeing each other. I value the visual connection. And so while Clubhouse is a very natural app to move towards, we would lose that. And so we chose intentionally to stay onto Google Meets and retain that video connection. But on the other hand, when you think of some of the people that you get to talk to on Clubhouse, right? These amazing people who don't have that much time in the day, or maybe they're on the move. Clubhouse provides a very easy way for them to connect with a lot of people without taking up too much time or too much effort. For some of these global CEOs or some of these thought leaders, all they need to do is to have their AirPods on, and they already get to be part of a conversation. So I think there are different things that you can get from different types of mediums, and it's all part of being a diet. Yeah.
And they could even phone in from the restroom if they want, or do a side on bed. So there's definitely a lot of appeal of doing a conference in Clubhouse, and we have seen that happen, everywhere already. And it's just great to see more action there. I think content creators like you, like me, we love to have our content discovered by new audience as well. It's a completely different sort of audience over there, right? Unlike the audience on LinkedIn, for example, where this festival is streamed live through LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Like the audience in LinkedIn, we are more focused on ourselves, right? Like everyone is more about posting stuff about their company, about what they're doing. It's about me. But in Clubhouse, it's all about helping one another, lifting other people up, and providing value. Some of the things that are shared on Clubhouse are amazing. It's like those are the things that people actually sell courses for. Like those are information you can only get if you purchase a course for $1,000, but they're just giving it away. Are you amazed by that?
Yeah, I would say that Clubhouse rewards two types of actions, right? The first is genuine action. So if you are on the app and you're there basically saying like, oh, I'm here to get more followers, I'm just trying to create rooms to get people in and have them follow me, and not actually like do anything out of a genuine intent to serve and to give back. Or if you're saying stuff and actually it doesn't really make sense, people won't follow you. People won't want to be part of our further conversations with you. And the second thing is, of course, the intrinsic value of what you share, right? So if you are saying stuff that it's not edifying, it doesn't help people, it doesn't give them something to work with or think about, then again, there's no real reason for people to follow you. So that combination of being genuine and being helpful is a powerful combination, because then the kind of people that thrive on Clubhouse are people who can actually talk, use their words to help others, and do in a lot of times, right? What people don't realize about Clubhouse is that Clubhouse isn't so much about speaking and giving content, but about holding spaces for conversations, right? So as, for example, my expertise is in a couple of key domains, right? And when it comes to those domains, I share generously. But in a lot of other domains, actually, I know nothing, right? But that doesn't stop me from being able to hold conversations, because holding conversations is a skill in itself. It's about inviting people in, making them feel safe, letting them shine, and having a container for them to be able to express themselves and give ideas, and then later on letting audience members to come up and engage with them, right? And that whole action and that whole process of holding space for them is a difficult job. So moderators play a huge role in Clubhouse, and actually what is underappreciated is the role of moderators in holding conversations.
And what I really appreciate about you is that you bring people on stage all the time. I remember that you brought me on stage. I think you were doing a panel with Anthony Chen, one of our famous award-winning film director. So I was able to ask some questions to someone that I really look up to, and it was amazing, because that means that you are a very inclusive type of person, where you open a room, but you don't just let people just sit in the audience and listen in to what these panelists have to say. You get them involved as well. I think that inclusivity part is really so important right now. Those rooms that are really well run and well moderated and full of people are those rooms where people actually get their voices heard as well, or get an opportunity to ask questions. So I think you nail it in the head when it comes to how to moderate a room really well, right? Is to include everyone.
Yeah, it gets very old very fast if all you're doing on Clubhouse is to host talks where the audience doesn't get to participate. Now, there are a couple of areas where maybe this discretion is useful, right? So, for example, if you're hosting Bill Gates it's going to be very difficult to bring up people because people may actually hate you if there's a long line and you don't bring them up. They're like, why did you get to choose someone else instead of me? So what some people do is that they use their Twitter or their Instagram as a way to collect those questions. I think that makes sense in certain appropriate areas. But if you only have around 200 people, or worse, if you only have around 50 people in your room, that's an opportunity for you to basically really take advantage of Clubhouse's functionality to engage people. And if you are not using that functionality to bring people up, then you might as well just use Zoom, right? Like, what's the point? You're just taking advantage of Clubhouse's distribution instead of actually using their functionality. So I think one thing that I try to do is to use that functionality in a very intentional way. So some of the rooms where we're bringing in speakers who maybe are a bit more quote unquote VIP, right? Meaning that they are there, they probably will get a lot of attention, they have a lot to share, and they want to engage, but they don't want to be overwhelmed. Then how do we as moderators hold a space and manage the room, right? Part of it is preparing the ground, so there could be some engagement that's done without the audience initially, and that's to really frame the conversations for the audience, to tell the audience, here's the focus, and let's stick to this. But then when the audience comes up, it's also about making sure that they that they understand how to engage, right? So a lot of it is about keeping your bio short, getting straight to the question, and making sure that they get closure, right? So did the question land? Yes. If not, here's you get an opportunity to clarify, but that's kind of it. If not, please connect afterwards, right? And a lot of that it's in respect and in service of the rest of the room.
Yeah, I always love rooms where, there are great moderators like you, right, who really manage the situation really well, like always keeping the conversation to stay on topic, and even, setting rules, like when the moment when any audience wants to raise up their hand and come on stage, right, immediately ask the question. Start it off with my question is, rather than who I am, where I'm from, I grew up here, I lived there. Those are like a time suck, right? And nobody wants to be in a room whereby we are hearing people pitching to one another, like on the ground floor of a conference where you basically can smell, a salesman who's trying to pitch to you, and they are looking at you as a potential client. I think those are rooms are a no-no. I've been in rooms where there are people of really high caliber, like people like even Tony Fernandez. He was in rooms whereby, the moderator controls so well. There are tons of people on stage, but people are not talking over one another because the moderator are able to actually set the stage really well and reset it all the time. So everyone is kind of disciplined in a very well-drilled, maybe even like how, we were seeing like Chinese citizens flooding the app just maybe slightly over a month ago before the ban came along, right? I was in a few those rooms where it's frequented by Chinese people, and they are doing it in a very disciplined manner. Like, you can come up, but ask maximum 2 questions. Do not introduce yourself. If you are interested, we'll look at your bio. And once you've asked the question, please move yourself down to the audience. Then the next audience have the opportunity to come up. So it's like even the moderator's job has been kind of like the heavy lifting has been lessened as a result, because they set the rules so clear. And of course, we know that the Chinese people are really disciplined people and they stick to it. So those are incredible rooms and eye-opener for me as well. And I've been really learning from pros like you on how to run maybe this festival in a Clubhouse format. So we're launching like a PodFest live in Clubhouse event on week 1 and 2, where we do like a room every night. And the only way to do it is to learn from people like you who have done successful rooms. So I'm really looking forward, to doing rooms with you together as well, because I think you add a lot to keeping people stay on topic. And of course, your wisdom, and that we can borrow as well. That's why, I want to have you on here and get to ask you, how you actually juggle so many plates. I know that you work full-time in public service, you do podcasting, you have content creation, and you do Clubhouse hosting almost every day, all at the same time. Where did you get all the energy?
Well, thanks, Wayne. Before I answer that question, I just want to give one caveat, and I think it's a helpful caveat. I think on Clubhouse, what we've been talking about is really in the domain of knowledge sharing, right? Meaning that there's a topic, people want to exchange ideas, and it's still a very pragmatic way of using Clubhouse. It's really borrowing from some of the functional needs that we have from conferences and all this kind of stuff. But I will also say that Clubhouse has a lot of different uses, and that includes social conversations, that includes artistic productions, and for those, good moderators are not necessarily needed. And a lot of times we project a bit, right? So I've heard of Singaporeans who basically say, I've been to an American room where everyone's just talking over one another, and it's very noisy. But when you ask the people in that room, actually they love it. Like, that's what they want. They want the social chatter, and they want people talking over one another because it makes them feel connected, right? So I think, I just want to be clear that we have to be clear on when we're using some of these terms, just to make sure we're not using our biases as well. Having said that, then moving on to your question about energy, I think for me, what I'm very intentional about is where I'm drawing energy and where energy is being expended, right? And a lot of that has to do with being self-aware, right? So for example, day job is very fulfilling, it pays the bills, and for the most part, it's a way for me to build certain capabilities in my career. But in terms of a lot of the core needs I have, right, which is engaging community, which is feeling creative, right? My current day job doesn't really have much opportunities for that, and that's fine. Like, when I signed up for it, I kind of knew what I was getting into. And so what I do is then I try to get that energy from something else. And a lot of that has to do with podcasting. A lot of that has to do with, just being in a creative space and engaging with people. And a lot of that has to do with just being in communities, right? Like, so I'm out there, I'm talking to people, I'm trying to build platforms for people to thrive and feel seen and included. And a lot of that is because that gives me energy. So I'm conscious of when something starts to become, like, I'm actually spending more energy on this than I'm getting, and you need to recalibrate, right? And a lot of that just means raising your hand and saying, well, this isn't mandatory, so I'm going to take a break. And or like, for example, on Clubhouse, they say like, well, today I don't want to host, I don't want to moderate, so I'll sit in, I'll just listen, and I won't expend energy. And so that awareness of self is super important. You can do a lot if you're aware, and of course with certain productivity tools like a calendar app and all this kind of stuff, and that's the kind of productivity hacking that you could read in a book. But I think the starting point is really being aware of where you're getting energy and where you're expending it, and making sure that at the end of the day, it's net, right? Because if you are net, then you're balanced a bit.
Those are great tips, how to actually juggle all these plates by being efficient, and of course, being really careful about which energy you expend, and you get back the kind of ROI that you're setting the right goal as well, right? Like, I think the Clubhouse for many people they're there because they just want to learn. And sometimes I guess, am I learning new stuff in this room? If I'm not, I'll go to the next room. A little bit like when I was attending maybe South by Southwest, right? Conference. Maybe I could be in a room and the Winklevoss twins are talking about cryptocurrency. And the moment when I find that it's getting not so entertaining or relevant to what I want to learn, I'll move out to the next room and maybe hear another group of people talk about podcasting. Or if I'm sick of that topic, I'll move downstairs and go to 6th Street and watch a live band do a showcase. Maybe they'll be playing like heavy metal music. And that's something that really allows me to just switch, just like we are switching channels on TV or maybe on Netflix, right? If you don't like it, just switch, change, right? So I think that's a kind of options that we have now, because there's so many things that are consuming our time all day. So it's important to be really careful on what we choose and what we pick. So I want you to maybe educate our audience a little bit about SG Explain. I think it's a great podcast. Your listeners can also bring up questions on issues that you raised on your podcast, right? I think recently I saw your social post where you mentioned about the outlook on aging. And they can actually join this after hours interact of your podcast show, actually Explain, where you can open up conversation and actually invite listeners to ask your guest questions live on Clubhouse. So is that an extension of your podcast show?
Yeah, it's meant to be, and it's an experiment more than anything else, right? So when Dr. Fahan, who was on our aging episode, she was a great partner and she had a lot of knowledge, and we basically realized that actually what we wanted to do was to engage people on it. We knew the podcast provided the base, right? It had all amazing content, and it also allowed Dr. Fan and I to basically scope actually what do we want to actually talk about. But we still lacked feedback, and you put out a podcast, it's gonna go, you're gonna get some comments from Instagram or by Facebook. Those are the social media channels we have for that. But we wanted direct feedback. We wanted people to share their stories and their reactions. And I said, actually, why don't we take it to Clubhouse, right? We'll use the app as a way to have a follow-up conversation, right? So the content's there, the energy has been expanded to understand the topic in a bit more depth. So people who've either listened to the podcast already can come on and ask questions or to hear the follow-on discussion, or the other way around is that people who have never heard of the podcast may get intrigued by the conversation. They'll ask some questions, and then because their appetite is whet a bit more, they'll go back to the podcast to get the full meal, right? So it works both ways, and it's really a way to bring engagement on some of these topics to a higher level. Did you want me to explain about the show? I can talk about SG Explained.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, so SG Explained is really what I call an explainer podcast, right? So you have some of these out there like Planet Money or Stuff You Should Know. And what they really do well is that they take a very complicated topic and they explain it in a way that people can understand. A lot of it has to do with just being a layman about it, right? Dumbing down terms or putting them into context. But a lot of it is also about narratives. So what are some of these topics actually telling us about who we are and how do they relate to us in our day-to-day lives? So when I first came back from college overseas, there was a lot of confusion on all these different Singaporean topics, right? Like, for example, at a policy level, like what is CPF? Why do I need to care about HDB? And then at a cultural level, I didn't understand some of the phenomena that was happening. Like, why is dating in a very certain way, or why is there racism in Singapore? How does it look like, right? And so I wanted to do research on these topics, and I was going to do it anyway, but I decided, actually, why don't I take that research, that natural curiosity I have, translate what I find to content that I can then share with an audience. And so I started off with a co-host called Willie. Willie is an old friend and a very smart guy. And we just started talking about these topics. Over time, Willie, of course, had to step back. He had other obligations. But Elliot, who had been joining us on some of these episodes, stepped up and said, let's do this together. We continued on. And every episode, we take a Singaporean phenomena, a Singaporean topic. It can go from topics like prata and laksa, all the way to very difficult topics like aging, mental health, the gig economy, really unpacking some of these things and exploring it. And oftentimes when Elliot and I don't really know much about a topic, that's where we bring in a guest, right? We'll say, we want to have this conversation, but we know that we can't do it by ourselves. And so we bring on a guest to help us out with it. And it's been an amazing journey. Like, we're in 3 seasons, so we're actually wrapping up our 3rd season in 2 weeks. I'm going to take a break, but it's been a lot of great content. We've engaged so many people, and I feel like we have a very, very cool community of listeners who are very passionate about the topics that we share about.
And on the topic of prata, right, which I absolutely love, it's about your recent episode, which offers kind of like a bit of an escape from the Chinese goodies that we're enjoying during Lunar New Year, because you help listeners understand the history of prata in Singapore, the difference from the Malaysian roti canai version, and even what all these crazy variations of the dish include, right? Tell us about this episode.
Yeah, the roti prata episode was very fun to produce. We like to do food episodes on a regular basis because it's a very natural way to explore the Singapore identity. I will say that when we thought about Prata, it was really actually from a clubhouse room where people were giving recommendations on where to get good Prata. And I said, oh, actually, why don't I do an episode to explore this? I think as I did that episode, I also realized that there's a very strong area of contention because the Malaysian community will say, actually, our version of roti prata, which is roti canai, is the best. And Singapore will say, well, no, we have great prata too. And I was curious, actually, is there really a difference, right? Because if you do, for example, a chicken rice episode, you know that up in Malacca, they have chicken rice balls, right? So there are differences, but within Prata, actually, I wasn't very clear what the difference was. And when you dig into the topic and you understand how roti canai is made and how roti prata is made, you see that there is a difference. Now, I won't spoil the revelation. I think you should listen to the podcast to find out. But it does make a difference, and I think if you say that you like roti canai better than roti prata, I don't see it as you like Malaysian food better than Singaporean food. I see it as you like, one version of the dish better than the other, and I think that's fine. Like, people are allowed to do that, right? So the prata dish was a lot of fun to do, and it got very popular because it's such a relatable topic, I guess.
I absolutely love that episode. So we have 5 more minutes left with you before I let you go. Tell us, what are your biggest wins from seeing more action, including your recent work on a Tech for Good project with Better SG?
Yeah, I mean, so Better SG is a non-profit Tech for Good collective that I'm a part of. I'm a computer science background by education, and the work that I do is nothing related to computer science. So I think, again, thinking of energies, I wanted a space to get energy from that and to also expand it in a productive way. So Better SG uses it basically brings people from different domains. So you have developers, you have people in the social impact sector, you have people in some of these domains like education who just want to help build tech for good. And my project is really in the area. So I do 2 things for Better SG. The first is I run a project team. So we are basically trying to create an app that allows facilitation of important conversations. And so what we do is that the app is supposed to match people to create diverse teams that are safe, meaning that there's some level of familiarity, but enough difference so that you feel like there's a space and tension for conversation. And then the app in itself has certain features that bring you along that conversation so that you can engage on some of these topics, like, for example, abortion or climate change or sexuality, right? Very, very sensitive topics. We recognize that, but we think it's important that people connect and talk about it. So that's one thing I do. The other thing, of course, is a very natural extension of my interests. I do a podcast with Better SG. So it's called The Good Technologist, and we talk to amazing people in the sector. It could include entrepreneurs, product managers, technologists who are all trying to create tech with a social good intent. So we've had some great conversations. It's really meant to bring together thought leaders in this area and to help people in the sector, just get ideas to inspire them to do other stuff. So yeah, those are the 2 things I do.
Fantastic. I absolutely love all the things or all the places we are seeing so much action. So I also know that you're a big fan of Pixar movie Soul, right? So it's finally arrived in Disney Plus SG, I think. I haven't checked it out yet because of this festival, so haven't subscribed to it yet. So have you subscribed to it? And tell us about what you enjoy the most about the concept of Soul.
I haven't subscribed to Disney Plus. I'm still making the calculus in my head whether it's worth it. But Soul is an amazing movie because it looks at a part of ourselves that we take a lot for granted, right? And when I talk about energy and I talk about passion and interest, a lot of it has to do with the soul, which is such a complex concept. It's about who we are deep down and how we navigate the world in terms of what we want, what makes us wake up and just want to take on the day, and all of those are such difficult things to to talk about. But Soul as a movie has such an elegant way of showing actually what is going on, what's happening when we feel like we're in the groove and we are, really, really feeding our soul. What happens when we feel disconnected from our soul, right? And we feel like, we're just droning away at work and our soul has gone. Like all these terms, like what does it actually look like? And Pixar does a beautiful job of just depicting that. And so I think it awakens a lot of things in you. It pushes you to ask yourself, where is my soul at? And I think it's really a good reminder that at the end of the day, we have to take life full on, right? There's a lot to be grateful for, and the ability to just live is a gift and a blessing, and we should not waste it.
100%. And what I actually love about Disney Plus when it was announced that it's landing in Singapore is because I want to catch this show. So I think that's something that during the pandemic year, right, we've been spending over a year already reflecting, and of course finding soulmate sometimes is also really difficult. And of course we know how hard it is to get connected and how good it feels, right, when we are finally connected. So a movie like Soul breaks it down for us so succinctly clear. I'm super looking forward to watching that movie once I wrap up this festival. So thank you so much, Rovik. It's really nice to get connected. And we really look forward to jamming with you on Clubhouse and hosting some rooms together, because I think you're a wonderful co-moderator that I can learn so much from you from and borrow your wisdom from. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this on Popeyes Asia as well. So hope you take care of yourself over there, and I'll see you really, really soon, yeah?
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, and absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Rovik. See you around. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See ya. Heather, how are you? I miss you during our last event. We miss your presence.
Oh, thanks, Wayne. It's great to be here with you, and so fun to listen to your last speaker talk. I love that movie Soul. It was great. I watched it with my kids.
Oh, I haven't caught it yet because Disney Plus just arrived in Singapore like yesterday, and because of this, preparing for this festival, I have no time to subscribe to it or to sit down for a movie, but it will be the first thing I'll watch, and when I finally get this festival wrapped up. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie as well. You loved it, right? Your kids loved it?
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. Highly recommend it.
I'll go check it out really soon. And of course, today we're not going to be talking about Disney Plus, or we're not going to be talking about Soul. We'll talk about your pet topic. And actually, you are one of the singular reason I'm starting Podfest Asia, because you educated me on the CMO Asia podcast right at the beginning of the pandemic. When we did this live, right? I think my first ever live guest was you. So you're someone
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're my first ever live, call-in guest, or maybe like doing this in the live format. And you broke it down for me. You introduced me terms like dynamic ad insertion. I've never heard of dynamic ad insertion before you came on CMO Asia podcast. I've never heard of ad tech. I didn't even know that advertising on podcasts is possible, and that's a way to monetize podcast shows, right? So today I'm gonna lean on you and your knowledge and borrow your wisdom again. Tell us, what do you have in store for us? Do you have slides you want to share, or should we just jam and talk like this?
Yeah, I do have slides prepared that I would love to share with you. And I wanted to talk to everyone today about how to prepare your podcast for advertisers. I think there's always a lot of people who are like, they feel like, are they ready? Are they not ready? Or what does that look like? And so I wanted to share that with you. So we can certainly jump into that and do some questions afterwards. Does that seem like that would be a good fit?
Sounds great. So over to you. Just click the share button and we'll add it to the screen immediately.
Excellent.
Let's rock and roll.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah. What advertisers look for when selecting podcasts to sponsor. Over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. So what essentially, if you're thinking like, hey, I want to make sure that my podcast is ready for advertisers, what are these sponsors actually looking for? So at True Native Media, we work with podcast advertisers all the time. And so I just wanted to share a few tips, and then we can definitely go through some questions. So the first thing that they really are looking for is quality content. And I know that that's not like a big surprise necessarily. Like, of course, quality content is going to be the foundation of what a sponsor is looking for. So just make sure that if you really do want to have advertisers on your podcast, that you have really good production, that your sound quality is good, and ultimately too, that your content is valuable. And really, for me, what this means is that you're taking your show professionally, that there's nothing wrong with podcasting as a hobby. And if you're doing it as a hobby and then it gets to a place where it means that you're ready for sponsors, that's terrific. But I would also say that you have to make sure that you're addressing your show like it is a business and making sure that you are actually really producing good quality content. It's so, so important. And then in terms of the actual content and producing value, when you think about it from a sponsor's perspective, essentially they are going to be partnering with you. So in some ways, it's almost like they're endorsing you just as much as you're endorsing them. So they are looking for content that they feel like, hey, if I were to align myself with this podcast, how would that reflect on my brand? So really think about the content. And I get questions sometimes like, is explicit content not good? And and that can be the case. I mean, there definitely are sponsors out there who will say, hey, we want to stay away from things that are controversial, things that are explicit. So take that into consideration. But we also want to make sure that you're creating content that is in alignment with who you are and the voice that you're trying to get out there. So that's also something that's really important. Any questions about that, Wayne?
So far, so good.
Okay, excellent. So next, consistent publishing schedule is super important. And I think the most important thing with consistent publishing schedule is that advertisers want to know that if your ad is scheduled to come out on a Tuesday or, the following Wednesday or what have you, that it's actually going to appear, their ad is going to appear in your podcast when you said that it would appear. And I feel like sometimes these are kind of ABC type things to talk about, but the reality is that I have seen it happen many, many times in my career where a show says, hey, we publish every Tuesday. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, but for the last 2 weeks, you didn't actually publish an episode, or, the other episodes fell on Thursdays, or you had one Thursday and one Wednesday. And again, if you're approaching your podcast like it's a hobby and you're like, hey, I'm just going to produce content when I feel moved to produce content, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to secure advertisers, they want to see that you have a consistent schedule, that they know that they can count on their ad appearing in your podcast on a certain day at a certain time. That doesn't mean like you have to publish at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. You might just say, hey, we publish on Tuesdays. And there is going to be an element of flexibility within podcasting, but consistent publishing schedules are really, really important, just so the advertiser has that reassurance that they know their ad will come out when you say that it's going to come out. Next, audience demographics are really important. Advertisers have a certain target demographic that they're looking for. They know who purchases their products and their services, and they need to speak to those people. And the way I always look at audience demographics from an advertising and marketing perspective is that if I were to say to, a crowd of people, hey, who is buying tires for their car this week? If you had a crowd of 100 people, there would be people in that crowd who would say, hey, I'm looking for tires. I need new tires right now. And an advertiser, if they are a tire company, hit the button. If they are a tire company, they only really need to speak to the people who are in the market to buy tires, right? They could talk to people who didn't need tires all day long, and that's not going to be helpful. So an advertiser is looking to reach people who will potentially purchase their products and services. So they have done a lot of work and a lot of research to identify who is going to be a good person for them to target to buy their product. So they want to know that your audience aligns with their target demographic. So if you don't know anything about your audience, or if you make the mistake of saying, everybody listens to my show, that's not a good thing. You need to have a very specific audience demographic. You need to know who is listening to your show, because if you know who listens to your show, then that advertiser can align themselves with you and expect to get results. Or if it's not the right alignment, then they wouldn't be interested in advertising on your show. So demographics to look at are things like age, gender, income, education, depending on the type of show. You could go deeper if you're a lifestyle show, maybe what are some of their hobbies? Do they have children? Those are the types of things that advertisers are going to be really interested in. And a question that I get a lot is, how do I determine who my audience is? And the answer to that is check in your hosting provider, because your hosting provider is going to be your first line of defense. So your hosting provider may or may not provide some demographical information. It depends on the hosting provider you have. They're all a little different. But then also think about the type of content that you're creating. If you're creating a mom show, chances are you probably got a lot of moms listening, right? If you have a more broad-based topic show, like a comedy show or a news show, that can be more difficult to determine who your audience is. And in that case, I recommend doing an audience survey. It should be something that is really very short. You can give them a link. You could create a survey in Google. There's SurveyMonkey. There's a million different tools out there to create a survey. But ask your audience, who are they? I heard a podcaster say once, hey, you guys know who I am. You listen to me all the time, but I don't know who you, the listener, are. And I want to get to know you better. So take a minute and fill this out. And you can incentivize your audience, maybe give them an Amazon gift card or whatever, if you have a product or service, maybe give that out for free to incentivize them to complete the survey. But I do recommend getting to know who your audience demographics and listeners are, and then really create the persona. And this is going to help you from an advertising perspective, but it also helps you from a content perspective. If you know what your audience is interested in and what they like, then you can create more of that. So any questions about that, Wayne, or any thoughts about your demographic?
Yeah, I think audience demographics is definitely a big one. It's like knowing your audience demographics. It must be the same or as close to the advertiser's target customer profile is so important, right? I have a podcaster who came on, I think 2 sessions before you. He hosts a podcast called Recast Podcast, and he dived into his analytics. He found out that his listeners are not large numbers, just a small group of people, but they are all 50-year-old and they're all C-suite people. And that's the kind of target demographics that brand advertisers are interested in. Not too huge mass audience who are like are chasing the flies, but if they really want to chase the lions, right, that's probably a show that brand advertisers should maybe target or maybe advertise on, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's exactly it. So great example. Next, it's really important to look at download numbers. And I know that you just mentioned the size of your show. And I feel like numbers are a topic that gets brought up a lot because people will say things like, hey, how many downloads do I need to get advertisers? You also mentioned dynamic ad insertion. So we typically are looking for shows that have at least 10,000 downloads per episode in a 30-day period. However, if you're doing dynamic ad insertion, meaning that the ad will appear in your current episodes as well as your back catalog, then you can look at all of the episodes that you've produced, and then you can say, hey, I know within a month I can deliver essentially X number of impressions. And the advertiser is going to look at that because ultimately what they're trying to do, they're trying to get in front of people, but you need to get in front of the same person multiple times. So look at the downloads per episode if you're doing embedded ads that are going to appear in just one episode, or look at your total downloads if you're doing dynamic insertion. Size really does matter. And I know that can be a challenge for people, especially if they have a smaller audience, to say like, gosh, I'm at 200 downloads now. Like, how long is it going to be until I get to 10,000? And I don't mean to say that to discourage people, but it's important for you to realize from an advertiser's perspective that there is a critical mass that they need to reach in order for it to be valuable to them. And I think oftentimes when I talk with podcasters, I feel like that's something they don't necessarily understand, is that that advertiser really is looking for results, whether it's greater awareness of their product and service or whether it's actual sales. And if your audience is too small, you're not going to deliver that. Now, a point that you just made, Wayne, which is really important too, though, is let's look at the type of listener that you have. We spoke with a podcast a couple of weeks ago that was interested in representation, and they were a show for surgeons. So their show was getting 10,000 downloads and they're reaching surgeons. Now that's a really desirable audience, right? Because it's not super easy to reach surgeons. However, we would need to look at what kinds of advertisers are going to be interested in reaching surgeons and what kind of dollar amount would be associated with reaching that group of people. So if you have a really specific niche topic, then you can charge more for that audience because they're more desirable. One thing to consider, though, is that if you just like to talk about who collects, pink stuffed animals, that's going to be a really niche audience, but it's not necessarily one that people want to reach, right? So you could have a really obscure topic and reach a really obscure audience, and that's not as valuable as reaching doctors or attorneys or software developers or different things like that. So it really just depends on the type of niche audience you have. And if you do have a niche audience, then downloads aren't as important because the caliber of the listener that you're reaching is going to be high, and that is worth a lot to advertisers. What are your thoughts about that, Wayne?
I love it because you're helping to reinforce the point that, it's not about always riches are in the niches. It's about whether the niche down content and the listenership are valuable in the first place. So I had another podcaster who came on, I think earlier yesterday or this morning, and she has a podcast called Eyes Up Podcast, where she interviewed optometrists, people in the medical profession, and specifically female medical professionals. So it's super niche down, and she's interviewing people in her medical industry. For those brands out there who are maybe manufacturing maybe blue-colored lens, for example, they will find a show really incredible and provide great value for them to actually deliver a message or to even showcase and promote a product launch, a new spectacle or a new type of lens, for example. So those are really appropriate for that brand advertiser. And it's not all about niching down and you'll get it right. It's about niching it down the correct way, yeah?
Yes, exactly. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. And that's what I feel people miss sometimes. Having a really small niche audience isn't necessarily valuable unless that person that you're reaching with your message is of value. And of course, again, I always put this in the context of we're talking about advertising here, right? So that's not to say that there aren't a lot of other valuable things in creating a really niche audience in terms of overall content creation. There's a lot of value in that, even if you are talking to a really obscure group. But in the context of advertisers, if you are a podcaster and you're motivated to get advertisers, then you have to look at what advertisers want and really, take that as a guideline for you as you're creating your content, as you're reaching an audience, as you're growing an audience. Because if that's your goal, then you have to give them what it is that they need.
I have an additional question regarding download numbers. Because, for example, this festival, we have a podcast. It doesn't have a huge listenership. Yeah, when I dive into the analytics provided by our hosting provider, Omi Studio, it doesn't have a great listenership. But we get more impressions on social in terms of the reshares. Especially, every festival, we have 50 speakers. And we are getting 50 reshares of the live stream, of the replays, of the snippets, of the social posts, of the mentions where they're tagged as well. Do they also form part of download numbers or impressions?
That is such a good question. And that's one that I definitely do get from time to time. And the short answer is no, because when we're looking especially at podcast advertising, it's important for us to distinguish that a podcast listener is very different than somebody who sees an impression on social media or sees a replay on social media or maybe YouTube. And the reason that it's different is because when we look at social impressions, people spend seconds on social media on your post. They spend in the low minutes on YouTube, but they spend typically over 20 minutes listening to a podcast. So the engagement level on a podcast is very different. And that's part of the reason that it's so valuable. Now, the lines are definitely, I would say, getting more blurred. I know, just in talking to friends in marketing in general, there are certainly a lot of people out there who have started podcasts that are really just YouTube channels, right? So they just create a video and they use a mic and they call it a podcast. But really, it's not a podcast. And that could be a big discussion. It's one that the industry has a lot. It's not really a podcast unless it's on an RSS feed and it's available through audio only formats. When you throw the video in there, there's nothing wrong with the video, but it really takes it outside of the realms of what a podcast is. And again, from an advertiser perspective, it's so important to distinguish the fact that a podcast is different than a YouTube video. And it's because of the way that people consume content and the way that ads are delivered. So ads are different in a podcast than they are on a YouTube channel or in social media. Now, all of that being said, it's important that each content creator understands the value of the content they're creating. So podcast content, again, like I said, is very different from other forms of content, but that doesn't make those other forms less valuable. It just makes them different. So if you're a podcaster and you're out there and you're thinking about trying to monetize the content that you're creating, my recommendation is that, especially if you're just starting out, don't try to go and work with a rep firm like True Native Media, because your show is probably going to be too small. And if you put your show, not that you shouldn't put your show up on some of the marketplaces, but a lot of times those marketplaces, you're just going to be, one of thousands of shows up there. You're probably not really going to make a lot of money. Where you're going to make the most money is for you to go out and sell your whole content strategy, right? Your entire package. So you can sell an advertiser your podcast. You could sell them inclusions in a newsletter. You could sell them mentions on a YouTube video. You could, sell them mentions in a social post. So you have this ability to leverage your entire content, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it all should be put within the podcast ad bucket. Does that answer your question?
100%. I think you succinctly, clearly explained to us all these different terms, and of course, reinforce that point so clear to us that we should be more focused on differentiating a vodcast from a podcast. And of course, content creator and podcaster are basically doing something similar in the same space, but there should still be lines drawn, especially when we are focusing on selling advertisements to using our podcast medium, right? So it's important to draw those lines.
Yeah, and it's just important because from an advertiser's perspective, they're going to look at them differently, and they should look at them differently. And they should also expect different results and different investment levels that they're going to pay for each of those things. But the nice thing is that if you can package them together, you can create a lot of value for your advertiser as well as your audience with that product and service. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the last, or I've got actually 2 more points to get to here. So professionalism is super important. And, I think that, again, I know I mentioned this before, but I've run into a lot of hobbyists when it comes to podcasting. And as someone who has been a business owner for many years, I find that a lot of hobbyists do not approach their podcasts like a business. So I always really, really encourage you that if you want to make money from something, you want a business, right? And so if you're looking to create a business, what kind of structure do you need to put in place in your podcast to create that business? So, if you don't have a website, if you don't have an email, or if you have an email account, but you just don't check it very often, if you're not going to be responding in a timely manner to people, all of those are important elements of creating a business and creating a company that is going to make money for you. And getting those advertisers requires that you put in that level of professionalism. So I always want to make sure that people can think of their shows, if they're, again, interested in monetizing them, as a business.
And to add to your point, right, before you go on to the next last slide, is that this professionalism thing, it extends to like treating it, podcasting as a business, where business is like a sport and speed is the essence. So how fast you respond to an email inquiry, for example, really, determine whether you have leveled up in terms of professionalism. So if you don't think that this is a sport, or you're not quick enough, then you shouldn't even be in business in the first place, right?
Right. It's true. And, we've all been guilty of answering emails slower than we would like to. But when you're looking to try and get advertisers, I kid you not, I have reached out to podcasts where I'm like, hey, we're interested in placing ads on your show. We've got this advertiser interested. They might not get back to me for like 4 or 5 weeks sometimes. And then they'll be like, oh, hey, sorry, I just saw this. And I'm like, well, that ship has sailed. That opportunity is dead now, So if you really are interested, I'm not saying you have to respond back in 10 minutes, but 24 hours, 48 hours, probably at the latest. Like, you want to make sure that you're getting back to people, and also that you've created a significant digital footprint. So they see your podcast, but they see that you have a website. They see that you have maybe prior advertisers listed on your site. They see the bones of something, again, that they would want to align themselves with. If you don't have any of that, then it's really difficult for for advertisers to want to align themselves with you.
I have one additional question on that. Yeah. It's about legitimizing your podcast by actually offering free advertisement spots to advertisers. Like, for example, if your podcast is, is associated with a brand that resonates with a lot of people, has a lot of trust, and people, when they see that your podcast, is associated with this brand, and you're reading an ad, for example, featuring this particular brand, it immediately legitimizes your podcast. It seems that your podcast is a place to be, and brands are out to, getting their messages delivered through your podcast. Do you think it's a good strategy in terms of offering free spots to brands that especially connect really well with your audience?
Well, Wayne, I'm just curious, did you read my slides before I gave the presentation? Because that's the next one. Wow. So no, I think that absolutely. I think that that's so important. You need to create some sort of a proven track record for advertisers. They need to look at what it is that you are providing and see that they can get value out of it, right? So I have here, have you had past advertisers or affiliate advertisers? There are lots of resources out there to sign up for affiliate programs and advertise companies on your show. And I recommend that if advertising is your goal on how you want to monetize your show, in my opinion, you should start affiliate advertisers from day one, because what it does is it educates your audience that they're going to expect to hear ads on your show. It gives you, the podcaster, experience on how to format your show and how to deliver strong ad reads to your audience and for that advertiser. And then also it gives you something that I think is invaluable, and that is results from a campaign. Because unfortunately, most advertisers are not going to tell you how a campaign performs. They will say it didn't perform, or we want to renew on your show, but very infrequently do advertisers come to you and say, I got 100 signups from your ad that you ran, or we made $10,000, right? Like, they're not going to tell you that because they don't want you to know. But when you sign up for affiliate programs, you know exactly how your campaign is performing because you get a check, right? Every time you sell something, you get paid. So you've got all of these insights into how your campaigns are performing, and then that gives you the track record. The other thing that's pretty cool is that a lot of times these affiliate programs are pretty big name companies. So you're creating essentially a portfolio for yourself of, hey, I had this advertiser and that advertiser, and I got them this result and that result. Your prospect doesn't need to know that it was an affiliate campaign. They just need to know that your show produces results. So I highly recommend that you start with affiliates.
This is wonderful, and also beautifully shared by you with your beautiful slides as well, and your clear explanation. You broke it down for us. In terms of, oops, how come there's music?
Music. Uh-oh, Wayne, are you still there? It looks like Wayne went on pause because he had a party going on in the background.
Somebody just connected my Bluetooth speaker, and then they're playing the music from next door, and it's just coming up from my speakers. This is a girl running a festival, and my Bluetooth speakers got activated. It's so funny. Anyway,
I thought you were having a party.
Yeah, like a Bhangra party. Yes. This is hilarious. Anyway, I want to thank you for beautifully sharing all this knowledge, all these resources, your beautiful slides as well. We have always been wondering what makes an advertiser choose a podcast to sponsor, right? And you broke it down so succinctly clear for us. So I really appreciate you for going to do this with me.
Absolutely, Wayne. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And if anybody has questions, I did want to let you know that if you feel like you're too small and you're not ready for representation, we did put together a course. It's called the Podcast Moneymaker course, and it walks you step by step through, all the things that you need to do to make sure that your podcast is ready for advertisers, how to go out there and get advertisers for yourself. So if you're interested in that, go to heatherosgood.com and check that out. Or if you have a podcast that is ready for representation and you're like, hey, we're getting over 10,000 downloads per episode, we'd really love help. Feel free to reach out to me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really active over there. I really, really need to get on Clubhouse. I'm on Clubhouse, but I haven't done many Clubhouses. And so I do need to get over there and get a little bit more active. So that's on my list. But LinkedIn right now is a great place to find me.
And you know what you mentioned about Clubhouse, right? PodFest is doing a Clubhouse live festival, completely 100% on Clubhouse. So I'm actually planning my event program right now. I'm going to insert you as one of our keynote speakers so that we can open a room together and invite the other, community members from PodFest Asia to join your room and hear you remix this incredible knowledge that we just shared during this particular festival. So it's like for those who missed out on this live stream, right, they could go to Clubhouse and maybe really listen in and learn more about what you have to share about how, advertisers actually look for when they're choosing podcast shows. Shall we do that?
I would love that. We should definitely do it.
Fantastic. It's a date. So I'm going to look forward. We'll be sending you more details after this. And probably will happen sometime in March, week 1 or 2. So we'll pick a date and have you come on for a 1-hour live jamming session where we just talk more in depth about this area that I think this is your topic and you are providing so much great value for.
Well, thanks, Wayne. Yeah, I would love to do that. And I really appreciate you having me on today. It's been a lot of fun to talk about one of my favorite topics, podcast advertising.
Fantastic. I can't wait to do this again with you in Clubhouse. So I'll see you in Clubhouse in a couple of weeks' time. All right.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Wayne.
Bye.
Take care.
See you. Goodbye. That's Heather Osgood from True Native Media. And she's one of the people who inspired me to start PodFest Asia because the knowledge that she's providing through her work in True Native Media is amazing. So go check out the site, heatherosgood.com. So with that, I'm going to finally have my dinner because it's 11:30 p.m. and I haven't had my dinner yet. And I have a super late night session starting at 3:30 a.m. So I'm going to maybe after dinner have a bit of a nap time and get refueled for our next batch of speakers. We have a dozen or more speakers coming on from 3:30 all the way until 11:30 a.m. Yeah, so I can't wait to deliver more content and more sharing of knowledge resources to everyone. So I'll see you guys Very shortly, I'll be back 3:30 a.m. Goodbye.